Sign here, and we'll take care of everything," my daughter-in-law Melissa said sweetly, sliding a thick stack of papers across my kitchen table with perfectly manicured nails. The afternoon light caught her new tennis bracelet. Strange how she could afford such luxuries when she'd been crying poverty just last week, claiming she couldn't contribute to my son David's medical bills. Which nursing home had she chosen to dump me in? And did she really think I'd become too senile to read the fine print? "Oh dear," I said, letting my hand shake slightly as I reached for my reading glasses. "These old eyes aren't what they used to be." "Which nursing home did you say this was for?" "Sunset Manor," she announced proudly, not bothering to hide her satisfaction. "Only the best for David's mother. It has a 5-star rating, beautiful gardens, and they specialize in residents with your particular needs." My particular needs. I was 72, still teaching yoga 3 times a week, and had just returned from hiking the Appalachian Trail last month. But Melissa had been planting seeds for months, telling David I'd been forgetful, suggesting I was becoming a burden, mentioning how confused I seemed during family dinners. All lies, of course, but David was recovering from surgery and trusted his wife implicitly. Sunset Manor, I repeated slowly, pretending to struggle with the name while my mind raced with delicious irony. "That sounds familiar. Is that the one on Rosewood Avenue?" "Yes." Melissa leaned forward eagerly. "See, you do remember some things. That's wonderful, Eleanor. The doctors there will help with your condition." I suppressed a laugh. My condition. The only condition I had was being in possession of a 6-bedroom house that Melissa had been eyeing since she'd married my son 5 years ago, and an investment portfolio she didn't know the full extent of. "And David agrees to this?" I asked, though I knew the answer. My son was currently on enough pain medication to make rational decisions impossible, something Melissa had undoubtedly counted on. "He's already signed," she said quickly. "He wants what's best for you, just like I do. Once you're settled at Sunset Manor, we can sell this big house and use the money for David's recovery. It's really the sensible thing to do." Ah, there it was. The real motive behind her sudden concern for my welfare. I picked up the pen with deliberately trembling fingers. "I suppose, if David thinks it's best." "He does," Melissa assured me, practically glowing with anticipation. "Just sign wherever you see the yellow tabs. Don't worry about reading everything. It's all standard admission paperwork." Standard admission paperwork that, if I was reading correctly from my upside-down angle, also included power of attorney documents and what looked suspiciously like a real estate transfer form. "You've thought of everything," I murmured, beginning to sign with a shaky signature that bore only passing resemblance to my usual firm handwriting. Let her think I was falling apart. Let her think she'd won. "Well, someone has to take charge," Melissa said, already reaching for her phone. "I'll call the moving company. We can have you transferred by this weekend." "This weekend?" I blinked owlishly. "So soon?" "No point in delaying. The sooner you're in proper care, the better." She was already texting, probably to the real estate agent she'd lined up to sell my house. I finished signing the papers and pushed them back across the table. "I suppose I should pack." "Don't worry about that." Melissa waved dismissively. "Sunset Manor provides everything. Just bring some photos and personal items. We'll handle the rest of your things. Handle them right into an estate sale, no doubt." "I think I'll go rest now," I said, standing slowly for effect. "All this paperwork has tired me out." Of course. Melissa was already gathering the documents into her designer handbag. "I'll take care of everything from here. You just relax." I shuffled out of the kitchen, maintaining my facade until I reached the stairs. Once out of sight, I straightened my spine and took the steps 2 at a time to my study. Time to make some phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, Margaret Chen. "Maggie?" "Eleanor Whitman." "Yes, we need to implement Plan B. My daughter-in-law just took the bait." "She actually did it." Margaret laughed. "Did she use the forged power of attorney documents?" Right on schedule. She also slipped in what looked like property transfer papers. Make sure building security has her photo. I don't want her anywhere near my offices. My second call was to James Morrison, my CFO. Jim. She signed me up for Sunset Manor. Schedule an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. Make sure all 12 directors attend. Video conference is fine for those out of state. This should be interesting, Jim chuckled. Does she have any idea you own the entire Sunset Senior Living chain? Not a clue, I said, logging into my computer to check the admission system. Sure enough, there was my application, fast-tracked for immediate approval. She also doesn't know that I founded the company 20 years ago after her predecessor tried the same thing with David's father. That was a story for another day. How my late husband's first wife had tried to have him declared incompetent to steal his business. It had inspired me to create a chain of ethical senior living facilities that actually protected their residents from predatory family members. Sunset Manor was our flagship property. My third call was to Dr. Patricia Hayes, Sunset Manor's director. Patricia, I'm going to be checking in as a resident this weekend under special circumstances. Yes, it's a family situation. I need you to play along but document everything. Another one trying to dump you for your assets? Patricia sighed. This is the third time in 10 years, Eleanor. Fourth, actually. Remember my nephew in 2018? This time it's my daughter-in-law. She's getting creative with forged documents. Want me to assign you to the memory care wing for authenticity. Regular assisted living is fine. I want to see how she behaves when she thinks I'm aware but helpless. My final call was the hardest. David answered on the third ring, his voice fuzzy from medication. Mom. Everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice. How are you feeling? Tired. Melissa says that you're going somewhere for a while. My heart ached. My poor son, betrayed by the woman he loved while he was at his most vulnerable. Just for a little rest. You focus on getting better. Mom. I'm sorry. Melissa says it's for the best. But. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I love you, David. Love you too, Mom. I hung up before my anger at Melissa could bleed through. David would learn the truth soon enough. The weekend arrived faster than expected. Melissa showed up with a single suitcase she'd packed for me, mostly threadbare clothes, and a few photo albums she deemed acceptable. Where are all my nice things? I asked, maintaining my confused elderly act. They'll be safer in storage, she said smoothly. Now come on, the van is waiting. The ride to Sunset Manor was silent except for Melissa's occasional phone calls to real estate agents and estate sale companies. She didn't bother lowering her voice. Why would she? I was just a confused old woman who couldn't possibly understand. Yes, it's a 6-bedroom colonial in Westfield, she told one agent. Original hardwood floors, 3-car garage, pool. I'm thinking we list at $2.5 million. My house was worth at least $4 million in the current market, but pointing that out would break character. At Sunset Manor, Patricia greeted us personally, which Melissa took as a sign of the premium service rather than recognizing the director deferring to the owner. Mrs. Whitman, welcome, Patricia said warmly, playing her part perfectly. We're so pleased to have you here. Thank you, dear, I replied vaguely. Such a pretty place. Melissa handled the check-in process with indecent haste, barely glancing at the paperwork Patricia provided. If she had, she might have noticed some interesting clauses about resident rights and property protection. Here's my contact information, Melissa told Patricia. I'm her primary emergency contact and power of attorney. Of course. Patricia nodded, knowing full well the POA documents were fraudulent. We'll be in touch if there are any issues. After a perfunctory goodbye, no hug, not even a pat on the shoulder, Melissa practically sprinted for the exit. Through the window, I watched her get into her Mercedes, purchased, I noted, just 2 weeks after David's accident, and speed away, probably heading straight to my house to begin cataloging her new possessions. "How long do we give her?" Patricia asked, dropping the professional facade. "Let's say 48 hours, I decided. Long enough for her to commit a few more felonies, but not enough to actually damage anything. "Your usual suite is ready," Patricia said. "I've had it set up the secure video conference system for your board meeting." My room at Sunset Manor was actually the penthouse suite I'd had built for situations exactly like this, a fully equipped apartment with office space, conference facilities, and a private entrance. The regular residents knew me as the founder who sometimes stayed on site to ensure quality care. The staff knew to be discreet. I spent the weekend monitoring Melissa's activities through the security system I'd have installed at my house years ago. She wasted no time, arriving with a moving truck Saturday morning. I watched her directing movers to load my antique furniture, my late husband's rare book collection, even my grandmother's china. "Careful with that," she barked at one mover handling a Tiffany lamp. "It's worth more than you make in a year." Actually, it was worth more than she'd make in a decade, but who was counting? By Sunday evening, she'd changed the locks, listed several items on high-end auction sites, and scheduled 3 different real estate agents for Monday morning. She'd also been foolish enough to use my computer to access banking websites, not realizing every keystroke was being logged. Monday morning arrived with beautiful irony. At precisely 9 a.m., as Melissa was meeting with the first real estate agent at my house, I convened the board meeting at Sunset Manor. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the 12 faces on the conference screen, looking nothing like the confused elderly woman Melissa had dropped off. "Thank you for attending this emergency meeting. As you know, I've been admitted to our flagship facility under concerning circumstances." "Eleanor, you look well for someone supposedly suffering from dementia," joked Robert Banks, our longest-serving board member. "Yes, apparently I've deteriorated rapidly," I said dryly. "So rapidly that I required immediate institutionalization and the liquidation of all my assets." "The lawyers are standing by," Margaret Chen reported from her position as board legal counsel. "We have documented evidence of elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and attempted grand theft. The police are prepared to move on your signal." "Excellent. Patricia, can you share what you've observed?" Patricia pulled up her notes. Mrs. Melissa Whitman presented fraudulent power of attorney documents and attempted to gain access to Eleanor's financial information. She's also violated aita by claiming to be Eleanor's medical proxy without proper documentation. "In the house situation?" I asked. "She's committed breaking and entering, grand theft, and fraud," Margaret confirmed. "The security footage is damning. We also have evidence she's been drugging your son to keep him compliant. The private investigator found receipts for prescription medications that don't match David's prescriptions." That last bit was news to me, and it turned my stomach. "She's drugging David." "Sedatives," Margaret confirmed. "Prescribed by a doctor she's been having an affair with. We have photos and hotel receipts." The betrayal was even deeper than I'd thought. Poor David. "All right," I said, steel in my voice. "Let's end this. Margaret, please initiate legal proceedings. I want her arrested at my house. Let the real estate agents witness it. Patricia, please prepare my discharge paperwork. I'll be checking out this afternoon." "With pleasure," Patricia smiled. "And Margaret? Make sure David's divorce attorney gets copies of everything, especially the affair evidence. I want my son free of this woman as quickly as possible." The meeting concluded with unanimous approval for all actions. Sometimes it paid to own a senior living empire that doubled as a protection service for elderly victims of family exploitation. By noon, the news began filtering in. Melissa had been arrested in my living room, in full view of 3 real estate agents and a moving crew. The police had recovered all my belongings from the truck. The fraudulent documents had been exposed. Her lover, Dr. Richard Carney, had also been arrested for illegal prescription practices. I returned to my house that evening to find David waiting on the porch, looking more alert than he had in weeks. "Mom." He stood shakily. "I'm so sorry. I can't believe I let her. I trusted her." "Oh, sweetheart." I pulled him into a hug. "She fooled us both. The important thing is you're safe now. The police said she was poisoning me, keeping me sedated so I wouldn't question things." His voice broke. "How did you know?" "I didn't at first," I admitted. "But when she tried to put me in a nursing home my own, I realized something was very wrong. No one who truly cared about family would be so eager to lock them away." "You own Sunset Manor?" "I own all of them, darling. 43 facilities across 6 states. Started the company after your father's ex-wife tried something similar. Figured other families needed protection too." David laughed wetly. "My mother, the secret senior care mogul. I should have known you were too sharp for her schemes." "Well, I did let her think she'd won for a few days. Had to give her enough rope to hang herself." I guided him inside. "Come on. Let's get you some real food and flush the rest of those drugs out of your system." As we entered the house, my house, safe and intact, I reflected on the weekend's events. Melissa had thought she was sending me away to be forgotten in some nursing home. Instead, she'd sent me to my own corporate headquarters, where I'd orchestrated her downfall from a conference room I designed specifically for such occasions. The next morning, I received a call from Patricia. "Eleanor, we have a situation. Melissa's mother just called asking about visiting hours and payment plans. Apparently, Melissa told her family she was paying for your care out of pocket as a gesture of love." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. "Send her the real bills. Let her see what her daughter was actually up to." "Already done." She was not pleased. "I imagine not." David joined me for breakfast, looking more like himself. "Mom, I have to ask, how many times has someone tried to have you committed?" "Including your stepmother?" "4 times. My brother tried it in 2012, a nephew in 2018, a supposed friend in 2020, and now Melissa." "And you've caught them all." "Benefits of owning the nursing homes they keep trying to stick me in. Plus, I learned long ago to document everything and trust no one with my finances except my lawyers and board members." "Will you teach me?" he asked quietly. "I don't want to be vulnerable like this again." "Of course, darling. First lesson, never sign anything while on pain medication. Second lesson, background checks are your friend. Third lesson, if someone seems too eager to help with your finances, run." He nodded, absorbing the wisdom born from years of deflecting predators disguised as family. Later that week, I stood before my board for our regular quarterly meeting, this time in person at our corporate headquarters, a modern building adjacent to Sunset Manor that Melissa had never bothered to notice. "I moved to establish the Eleanor Whitman Foundation," I announced. "A fund to help elderly victims of financial abuse by family members. We'll provide legal resources, temporary housing in our facilities, and investigative services." The motion passed unanimously. As I signed the foundation documents, I thought about all the elderly people who weren't as fortunate as I was, who didn't own the nursing homes they were dumped in, who didn't have security systems and board members and lawyers on speed dial. Melissa had tried to put me in a nursing home. She'd succeeded. She just hadn't realized she was putting me in charge.
The envelope felt too light to hold a lifetime of anything. Inside there was no sentimental letter, no apology, no explanation. Just a single crisp $50 bill clipped to a piece of notepaper. 4 words were scrawled in my mother's familiar, spiky handwriting. "For gas money, dear. My name is Hallie Ellis. I'm 38 years old, and that $50 was my inheritance." I folded the note and tucked it into my pocket, my face a perfect mask of neutrality. Across the mahogany desk, our family lawyer, Ernest Rogers, a man of 65 who had known me since I was born, cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable, his gaze shifting between me and my older brother. "As you can see, Hallie," Ernest said, his voice gentle, "your mother Eleanor was very clear in her final wishes. The remainder of the estate, all accounts, assets, and personal effects, including the family home at 124 Willow Creek Lane, is to be transferred to your brother, Carter. Carter, who at 41 still had the smug look of the high school quarterback who'd never faced a real challenge, shifted in his leather chair. He was trying for sombre, but a triumphant glint in his eyes gave him away. He placed a comforting hand on my arm, a gesture of magnanimous pity that made my skin crawl. "I'm sorry, Hal," he murmured, his voice thick with fake sympathy. "You know how Mom was. Traditional. She always believed the house should stay with the man of the family." "I didn't pull my arm away. I didn't do anything. I just sat there, a ghost in a room full of my own history. My entire childhood was a training ground for moments like this, learning to absorb blows without flinching. I remembered being 10, my father ruffling Carter's hair after he'd won a Little League trophy. "That's my boy," he'd boomed, "the future man of this house." I'd been standing right there, holding a report card with straight A's, and he'd looked straight through me. Later, when I'd shown my mother, she glanced at it and said, "That's nice, dear. Now don't bother your father. He's celebrating with your brother." Then there was the time I was 16, heartbroken over a breakup. I'd been crying in my room when my mother opened the door without knocking. She didn't hug me. She didn't offer a kind word. She just sighed, a sound heavy with disappointment. "Honestly, Hallie, must you be so moody all the time? No wonder you can't keep a boyfriend. Your brother never has these problems." Carter was the sun. I was the shadow he cast. He was praised for breathing while I was criticised for my silence. They called me difficult, moody, and ungrateful. What I was observant. I saw every slight, every dismissive wave of the hand, every dollar spent on Carter's future, while I was told to find a nice man to take care of me. So I learned to take care of myself instead. "The deed will be formally transferred to Carter's name by the end of the week," Ernest continued, shuffling papers to avoid looking at me. "He will be able to take possession immediately." "Of course," Carter said smoothly. "Angela and Marley are already packing. We're hoping to move in this weekend. It'll be good for the house to feel like a family home again." The implication hung in the air, that it hadn't been a family home with just me and my mother in it, even though I was the one who paid her bills for the last 5 years. I was the one who arranged her care when she got sick. Carter just showed up for holidays to collect praise for being such a devoted son. I finally stood up. The meeting was over. I had what I came for. "Well," I said, my voice even. "Congratulations, Carter." He stood and pulled me into an awkward, one-armed hug. "It's what Mom and Dad would have wanted," he whispered into my hair, as if that sanctified the whole rotten affair. I pulled back and looked him dead in the eye. For a split second, I let the mask drop. I let him see the cold, hard calculation behind my gaze. His smile faltered. He saw something there he didn't recognize, and it made him uneasy. Good. I gave a polite nod to Ernest and walked out of the law office without another word. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I walked calmly to my black SUV, the kind of car my father always said was too much vehicle for a woman. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather cool against my skin. I didn't drive home to my condo. Instead, I drove through the familiar, tree-lined streets of my old neighbourhood. I drove past the park where I was told to watch Carter play baseball, past the school where his trophies filled a case in the main hall. I drove until I reached 124 Willow Creek Lane. The house looked the same. A 2-story colonial with pale yellow siding and black shutters. The lawn was a little overgrown, a testament to my mother's final months. I saw Carter's car pull up behind me. He must have followed me, probably to gloat. I ignored him. I got out of my car, walked up the familiar stone pathway, and stopped at the front door. From my pocket, I pulled out not the $50 bill, but a small, solid key. I slid it into the lock. It turned with a satisfying metallic click. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, leaving it open for him to watch. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of old paper, dust, and my mother's rose-scented perfume. It was the smell of a life shrinking, room by room, until all that was left was a single chair and a television. I ran my hand along the dusty mantelpiece, my fingers tracing the faint outlines where family photos used to hang, mostly of Carter. This house wasn't just a house. It was a monument to my family's selective memory, and I had bought it fair and square a year ago. It started with a piece of mail delivered to my condo by mistake. A pre-foreclosure notice for 124 Willow Creek Lane, addressed to my mother. She'd taken out a reverse mortgage years ago, a fact she'd conveniently never mentioned, and had fallen behind on the property taxes and insurance. The bank was ready to seize the property. My first instinct was to call her, to fix it. The old Hallie would have. But the old Hallie was tired. Instead, I called my best friend Stacey, a paralegal who knew her way around impenetrable paperwork. Through a shell company, a sterile, anonymous LLC I used for my real estate investments, we made an offer directly to the bank. We paid off the lien, satisfied the mortgage, and the deed was transferred to HE Properties LLC. My mother never knew. She just knew the scary letters stopped coming. She probably credited Carter with talking to some important friend of his. She always did. My path to HE Properties was paved with other people's leftovers. After college, I took jobs doing estate cleanouts. I hauled junk from the homes of the dead, and I learned to see the value in what people threw away. A dusty painting, a set of sterling silver, a first edition book. I sold them, saved every penny, and eventually had enough for a down payment on a dilapidated duplex. I fixed it up myself, living in one half while I gutted the other. Grit, hustle, and silence. That's how I built my life. A key fumbled in the front door lock, followed by Carter's impatient muttering. The door swung open, and he stood there, silhouetted against the afternoon light. "Hal? What the hell are you doing in here?" he demanded, his voice echoing in the empty hall. He saw the bottle of champagne and 2 flutes I'd set on the coffee table. His face darkened. "Are you taking things?" The will was perfectly clear. "I'm not taking anything," I said calmly, pouring a glass for myself. "I'm celebrating." Just then, a minivan pulled into the driveway. Carter's wife, Angela, got out, looking impeccable as always in a cream-coloured pantsuit that probably cost more than my first car. She wrinkled her nose as she stepped inside. Behind her trailed their 16-year-old daughter, Marley, her eyes wide, as she took in the house she'd only visited on holidays. "Carter, what's going on?" Angela asked, her voice dripping with condescension. She looked me up and down. "Hallie, I suppose you're here to pick up a few sentimental items before we move in." The way she said sentimental items made it sound like scraps from the table. "Something like that," I said, taking a slow sip of champagne. Carter's patience snapped. "Get out, Hallie. This is my house now. You heard Ernest. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Your house?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. I walked over to the mantelpiece and picked up a thick manila folder I'd left there. "That's funny, because according to this, it's my house." I pulled out the grant deed and handed it to him. He snatched it from my hand, his eyes scanning the document. I watched the colour drain from his face. He read it, then read it again, his finger tracing the legal lines. "HE Properties, LLC. What is this?" he stammered. "That's my company," I said simply. "I'm the sole proprietor. I bought this house 13 months ago when Mom was about to lose it to the bank. The will is irrelevant." "You can't inherit something that was never hers to give." Angela peered over his shoulder, her perfectly painted mouth falling open. "You're lying. This is some kind of trick." "It's all filed with the county recorder's office, Angela. It's a matter of public record," I said, enjoying the look of pure, unadulterated shock on her face. Marley stood frozen by the door, her gaze flicking between her furious parents and me. She was seeing something new, and the gears were turning. Carter threw the deed onto the floor. "You snake! You went behind our backs, behind Mom's back." "I saved her from being evicted," I corrected him, "while you were busy accepting her praise for being the man of the family. You never once asked her how she was paying the bills, did you?" He had no answer for that. He just stood there sputtering, his face turning a blotchy red. Angela looked like she was about to be sick. I picked up my champagne flute and took another sip, letting the silence stretch. Then I delivered the final, beautiful blow. "You should probably find a hotel for the weekend," I said, my voice as cool and crisp as the champagne. "I have demolition permits filed. This house is being gutted next week." A few days later, the house was filled with a different kind of silence, the quiet hum of potential. I walked through the empty rooms with my contractor, Kai Gomez. At 34, he had a calm, steady presence that I valued in a business partner. He moved with a quiet confidence, tapping on walls and making notes on a tablet. "This is a load-bearing wall, obviously," he said, rapping his knuckles on the plaster between the living room and dining room. "But we can open it up with a laminated beam. It'll completely change the feel of the space." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. I saw my father sitting in his armchair right where Kai was standing, not looking up from his newspaper as I came home with a debate team trophy. "Don't block the television, Hallie," was all he'd said. We moved into the kitchen. The yellow linoleum was cracked, the countertops a hideous shade of avocado green. Kai ran a hand over the formica. Full gut. New plumbing, new electrical. The works. This was the room where my mother taught Carter how to make his lumpy, terrible pancakes, praising him like he was a world-renowned chef. The one time I tried to help, I'd spilled a drop of batter on the floor. She'd snatched the bowl from my hands. "You're too clumsy for this," she'd snapped. "Go set the table. Try not to break anything." "Hallie?" Kai's voice pulled me back to the present. "You good?" "Yeah," I said, shaking off the memory. "Good. Let's do it." "All of it." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Angela. I'd been ignoring her calls for 2 days, but I knew it was a temporary solution. I finally answered. "Hallie, thank God," she began, her voice a syrupy blend of fake concern and steel. "Carter is a wreck. We're staying at my sister's, and it's just awful. The children are all cramped together. You can't do this to us." "I'm not doing anything to you, Angela. This is a business transaction." "Business?" "This is family," she insisted, hitting the word like a drum. "What will people think? You? Kicking your own brother out of his childhood home right after his mother passed away. It's cruel." "He has the money from Mom's accounts," I said flatly. "He can rent a place. Or buy one. It's the principle of the thing. For Marley's sake, Hallie. She's so upset. You have to let us stay, just for a little while, until we get on our feet." "The demolition starts Monday," I said, and hung up. Later that evening, a text came through from an unknown number. "Is it true what my mum said? That you bought Grandma's house a year ago?" I knew it was Marley. "Yes," I typed back. A moment later, another message. Why? I thought about how to answer that, because it was the only way to make sure it wasn't lost. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared for a long time before she finally replied, "Oh." The next day, I went back to the house alone. The movers I'd hired had cleared out the last of my mother's furniture, donating most of it as per my instructions. All that was left was the attic. It was hot and smelled of cedar and decay. I pulled on a dust mask and started sorting through the debris of a life I was never fully a part of. Old holiday decorations, moth-eaten clothes, stacks of magazines. Tucked away in a dark corner, under a pile of my father's old army blankets, was a banker's box. It wasn't labelled. It was just sealed with yellowed tape. Carter's handwriting was on the side in faded marker. Keepsakes. He must have stashed it here years ago and forgotten about it. Curiosity got the better of me. I sliced the tape with my utility knife and lifted the lid. Inside were old photo albums, the kind with the sticky plastic pages. Pictures of my parents' wedding, of Carter as a baby, of me as a sullen-looking toddler, always on the edge of the frame. There were bundles of letters tied with ribbon, mostly from my mother to my father when he was stationed overseas. I dug deeper, my fingers brushing against something hard. It was a small wooden box, not a jewellery box, but a document box, the kind you keep important papers in. It wasn't locked. Inside, nestled among my father's military medals and a few dried flowers, was a thick envelope. My breath caught in my throat. It was addressed to me. Just Hallie. The handwriting was my father's. In the top right corner was a postage stamp, cancelled. I held it up to the single dusty light bulb. The postmark was clear. It was dated the week he died. And across the seal on the back, where it had been carefully glued shut, someone had placed a single neat piece of clear tape. It had been opened and then resealed. My fingers trembled slightly as I broke the tape and slid the letter out. The paper was thick, expensive stationery, the kind my father used for important correspondence. His handwriting was a familiar, forceful scrawl. "My dearest Hallie," it began. "If you are reading this, it means I am gone. There are things a man puts off saying, and I am ashamed to admit I have been a coward. I know I wasn't always the father you deserved. I saw how your mother favoured Carter, and I did nothing to stop it. I told myself it was just how she was, but that was an excuse. You have a fire in you, a quiet strength that your mother never understood, and frankly, that I think scared her a little. She saw weakness in your silence. I always saw a mind at work. I am not leaving you without a safety net. This house, this life, it was always meant for Carter. He needs it. He doesn't have your grit, but you are meant for something else. A few years ago, I used my inheritance from your grandmother to purchase the lakefront property on Stillwater Drive. It is yours, free and clear. The deed is in your name, filed away in my office safe. Ernest Rogers has the combination and instructions to give it to you. It's a place for you to build, to make something of your own, away from the shadows of this family. Be well, my girl. Know that you were loved. Dad." I read the letter 3 times, the words blurring through a film of tears I hadn't realised were forming. A lakefront property, a place just for me. He hadn't forgotten me. He'd seen me all along. The grief and the validation hit me with the force of a physical blow. Then the cold reality set in. I'd never received it. Ernest had never mentioned it. The letter had been intercepted. A memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome. I'd been away at a weekend debate tournament, the one that secured my college scholarship. I'd called home, and Carter had answered. He'd said Dad was sleeping, that he'd been going through old files all day and was exhausted. My father had his heart attack 2 days later. Carter had been here, alone with him, while I was gone. He'd been helping with the paperwork. The rage that filled me was a cold, clean fire. This wasn't just about a house anymore. This was theft on a scale I hadn't imagined. He hadn't just stolen an inheritance, he'd stolen my father's last words to me. The next morning, I was on the phone with Stacy. "I need you to run a property search," I said, my voice tight. "Stillwater Drive." "I don't have a lot number, but it's lakefront. Search for anything under my father's name. Or mine, Hallie Ellis, going back about 15 years. "What's this about?" she asked, her tone all business. I told her everything. She was silent for a moment. "That bastard," she finally breathed. "I'm on it." 2 hours later, she called back. "You're not going to like this. The property was purchased by your father 14 years ago. But the deed was never officially recorded with the county under your name. A year after your father's death, a new deed was filed. The property was transferred from your father's estate into a blind trust, the Willow Creek Trust. Guess who the trustee is?" "Let me guess," I said, my voice dripping with ice. "Carter Ellis." Bingo. And it gets better. 3 years ago, the Willow Creek Trust sold the property to a newly formed LLC for $1. The LLC is registered to an address in Delaware, but the signatory on the incorporation documents is Angela. Corporate theft. He'd used his knowledge of Dad's affairs to create a paper trail so convoluted it was designed to never be found. He'd laundered my inheritance through a series of legal manoeuvres, selling it to himself for nothing. The fury solidified into a plan. A cold, methodical, and utterly ruthless plan. Exposing him in the house was just the appetizer. Now, I was going for the main course. This wouldn't be a quiet family dispute. This would be public. It would be humiliating. It would be a spectacle. That evening, as I was drawing up a list of documents I needed to gather, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and was surprised to see Ernest Rogers standing on my doorstep, looking older, and more worried than he had in his office. I opened the door. "Hallie?" he said, his voice low. "I apologise for the late hour. May I come in?" I stepped aside, my guard immediately up. He walked into my living room, looking around at the clean, minimalist space. It was a world away from the cluttered, suffocating house on Willow Creek Lane. "I couldn't say what I needed to at the office," he began, turning to face me. His eyes were heavy with a burden he'd clearly been carrying for a long time. "Carter was there." And frankly, I was afraid of what he might have already done. He took a deep breath. "There's something you don't know about your mother's will. Something she kept even from Carter." I stared at Ernest, my mind racing. "What are you talking about?" "A week before she passed, your mother called me to her hospital room," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She was lucid, but weak. She had me draft an addendum to her will, a codicil. It was simple, handwritten on a single page. She signed it, and her nurse witnessed it. It was legally binding." "An addendum for what?" "She left you half of her liquid assets," Ernest said, finally meeting my eyes. "Everything in her savings and checking accounts. It wasn't a fortune, but it was close to $100,000. She told me she wanted to make things right in the end." He sighed, a weary, defeated sound. "I put the original in a sealed envelope and gave it to Carter to file with her other papers, as he was the executor. I told him explicitly what it was, and that it superseded the previous terms regarding the accounts. Of course he did. And Carter, knowing he'd already stolen the lake house from me, probably saw the 100,000 as a pittance he was still unwilling to part with. He'd buried it, just like he'd buried our father's letter. He never filed it," I stated. It wasn't a question. "No," Ernest confirmed. "When I saw the $50 bill, I knew he'd hidden it. I confronted him after you left, and he claimed your mother was confused, that she wasn't of sound mind. It's a lie, Hallie. I have my own notarized copy right here." He reached into his briefcase and handed me a folder. Inside was a photocopy of the addendum, my mother's shaky signature at the bottom, next to a nurse's neat script. The perfect weapon had just fallen into my lap. And Angela, in her infinite wisdom, had just handed me the perfect arena to deploy it. She'd been calling and texting relentlessly, insisting on a family dinner at her sister's house to smooth things over. It was a transparent attempt to ambush me, to guilt-trip me in front of an audience into letting them stay in the house. "Fine," I finally texted back. "Saturday at 7. I walked into a war zone disguised as a dinner party. Carter's entire family was there, aunts, uncles, cousins, all looking at me with varying degrees of pity and disapproval. Angela greeted me at the door with a kiss on the cheek that felt like a snake bite. "Hallie, I'm so glad you came to your senses," she whispered. Carter stood by the fireplace, a drink in his hand, looking haggard. He was trying to project his usual arrogance, but the foundation was cracked. They sat me down, and the passive-aggressive onslaught began. "It must be so lonely rattling around in that big house all by yourself," one aunt chirped. "Family has to stick together, especially in times of grief," an uncle added, staring pointedly at me. I let them talk, sipping my water, a picture of calm. Marley was sitting on the stairs, just out of sight of the main living room, but I could see her peeking through the banister, listening to every word. Finally, Carter spoke. "Look, Hal," he said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "We all know Mom's will was her final wish. She wanted me to have the house. For you to try and steal it on a technicality. It's just not right." That was my cue. "Speaking of Mom's final wishes," I said, my voice cutting through the room's chatter, "weren't you supposed to file the addendum to her will with Ernest? The one she signed the week before she died?" The colour drained from Carter's face. Angela's smile froze. "I don't know what you're talking about," he blustered. "The one leaving me half of her bank accounts," I continued, my voice level and clear. "The one you hid because you're a thief. Just like you hid the deed to the lake house Dad left me. The one you sold to yourself for $1 through a shell company registered in your wife's name." The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. From the stairs, I heard a small gasp. "Marley!" "That's a lie!" Angela shrieked, jumping to her feet. You're a vindictive, horrible person, making up these lies to hurt us." "It's not a lie," I said, pulling a thick stack of papers from my bag. Stacey had worked miracles. "It's a paper trail. Here's a copy of the addendum, notarized by Ernest. Here's the original deed to the lake house in my name, from Dad's files. And here," I said, tossing the last folder onto the coffee table, "are the incorporation papers for the Willow Creek Trust and the LLC you used to steal it. Your signatures are on every single page." Carter looked like he'd been punched in the gut. He sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. The aunts and uncles were staring, mouths agape, looking back and forth between the papers and my brother's crumbling facade. Marley appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her face pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad, is that true?" she whispered. Angela rushed to her side. "Don't listen to her, baby. She's twisting things." But the proof was right there, in black and white, for the whole family to see. The world they had built on a foundation of lies was shattering around them. Carter finally looked up at me, his eyes filled with a venomous hatred. "You'll regret this." Angela grabbed his arm. "We'll sue you for everything you have. Slander, defamation." I leaned in close, my voice a low whisper only they could hear. "Bring it on. Let's dance." True to my word, the demolition began Monday morning, but Carter and his family hadn't left. Angela's sister had apparently kicked them out after the disastrous dinner party, and with their assets now under scrutiny, they couldn't get a short-term lease. They were squatting in a house that was legally mine. I didn't call the police. An eviction would be messy and slow. I had a much better plan. At 7 a.m. sharp, Kai's crew arrived. The first thing they did was remove all the windows, replacing them with thick sheets of plywood. The house was plunged into a gloomy twilight, the only light coming from bare work lamps. Then came the drywall. They didn't tear it down, not yet. They just stripped off the wallpaper and paint in long, ragged sheets, exposing the yellowed plaster and seams beneath. The house looked like it had been skinned alive. Yellow caution tape was strung across the front porch and the now empty window frames. A huge industrial dumpster was dropped in the driveway, blocking their minivan. They were trapped in a construction site. My masterstroke, however, was PR. I called a reporter from the local paper I knew from a charity board I sat on. "I'm restoring my childhood home," I told her, pitching the story with practiced ease. "It's a passion project. I want to honour my family's history while breathing new life into a place that holds a lot of painful memories. It's about transforming the past into a positive future investment for the community." The story ran the next day with a picture of me smiling in a hard hat in front of the taped-off house. The headline read, "Local investor honours family legacy through restoration." The public humiliation was swift and brutal. Neighbours, who had only ever seen the polished facade of the Ellis family, now saw the truth. They saw Carter's minivan trapped behind a dumpster. They saw Angela trying to sneak out for groceries, her face a mask of shame. One of the nosier neighbours, a teenager with a TikTok account, even started live streaming the daily progress, complete with dramatic music and captions like "Ellis Family Drama Day 4. Carter and Angela were essentially prisoners in a decaying cage of their own making, their reputations being dismantled board by board. The power was shut off for safety reasons, then the water. I had every legal right. It was an active construction zone. They were living on takeout and bottled water, their perfect lives reduced to a public spectacle. One evening, my phone lit up with a text from Marley. "Can you tell me the truth? All of it? Mum and Dad just keep yelling." I met her at a coffee shop a few towns over. She looked small and lost, her eyes red from crying. She listened silently as I laid out the whole story, the pre-foreclosure, the purchase, our father's letter, the stolen lake house, the hidden addendum. I didn't embellish or editorialise. I just gave her the facts, supported by the documents I'd brought with me. "He was so proud of you," I said softly, showing her a copy of our father's letter. "He saw you, Marley, just like he saw me." She traced his signature with her finger, tears rolling down her cheeks again. "I always thought They told me you were cold, that you didn't care about family. I cared so much I had to leave to survive, I told her. That night, as I pulled up to my condo, a figure stepped out of the shadows near my building's entrance. My hand immediately went for the pepper spray on my keychain. "Whoa, Hallie, it's me!" The voice was familiar, but I hadn't heard it in over 20 years. The man stepped under a streetlight and my breath hitched. Gage Riley, my high school boyfriend. The one my mother had hated with a fiery passion. The one she'd accused of ruining her daughter. At 43, he had laugh lines around his eyes and a touch of grey at his temples, but it was unmistakably him. "Gage? What are you doing here?" I asked, my heart pounding for a completely different reason now. "I saw the article about the house," he said, his expression serious. "And I saw the comments online, the videos. I figured it was time I told you something. Something I heard a long, long time ago." He took a deep breath. "It was the night of our senior prom. I came to pick you up and I was early. Your front door was ajar, and I heard your mum and Carter fighting inside. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help it. He was yelling at her about me, about you, and then he said it. He screamed, 'It's bad enough Dad insists on treating his bastard like she's a real daughter, but you don't have to let her throw her life away on some townie.' Gage looked at me, his eyes full of a sorrow 2 decades old. 'Your mum didn't deny it, Hallie. She just told him to shut up before you heard. I never knew what to do with that. I was just a kid, but I think you need to know. The way she treated you. It wasn't just because she favoured Carter. It was something else entirely.' Gage's words hung in the cool night air, rearranging every memory I had of my mother. His bastard. It wasn't just favouritism. It wasn't just that I was a girl. I was a living, breathing symbol of my father's infidelity. A constant, quiet reminder of a secret she had been forced to keep. My father hadn't overlooked me. He'd been trying to protect me. My mother hadn't just disliked me. She had actively, deeply hated me for a sin that wasn't even my own. And Carter. Carter had known. He'd used that secret as a weapon his entire life, wielding it to justify his entitlement, to poison my mother's mind against me, and to rationalise stealing what was rightfully mine. He believed he was the only legitimate heir. I thanked Gage, my voice a hollow echo of its usual self. I went inside my condo and sat in the dark for hours, letting the final, ugly piece of my family's puzzle click into place. The revelation wasn't a wound, it was a cauterization. It burned away the last lingering traces of doubt, the last microscopic hope that maybe I had misunderstood, that maybe they had loved me in their own dysfunctional way. They hadn't. It was that simple. The next morning, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. The emotional chains that had bound me to them for 38 years had finally rusted through and fallen away. There was nothing left to salvage, nothing left to mourn. There was only the endgame. Instead of folding, I doubled down. Angela's empty threats of a lawsuit were a joke. I was the one with the power, the proof, and the righteous fury. I called Stacey. "File it all," I said. "Civil charges. Will tampering, property fraud, and I want to add slander for the public accusations they made at that dinner party." "Are you sure?" she asked, a hint of concern in her voice. "This gets very public, very fast." "Good," I said. "Let everyone see." The legal battle was swift and brutal. Carter and Angela tried to countersue, claiming emotional distress and harassment. It was thrown out immediately. They were living in a house I owned, a house that was an active, permitted construction site. They had no legal leg to stand on. My case, however, was an ironclad fortress of documentation. The climax came not with a dramatic family confrontation, but in the sterile, quiet environment of a courtroom during a preliminary hearing. The local media, already hooked by the saga of the Restoration, was there in full force. I took the stand, calm and composed. My lawyer walked me through the evidence piece by piece. The pre-foreclosure notice, the deed to the house in my LLC's name, my father's letter, the unrecorded deed to the lake house, the labyrinthine documents for the trust and shell company Carter and Angela had created, and finally, earnest notarized copy of the will's addendum. When Carter's lawyer cross-examined me, he tried to paint me as a bitter, vengeful spinster. "Isn't it true, Miss Ellis, that you were jealous of your brother's close relationship with your parents?" I looked directly at the judge. "My brother's relationship with our parents was based on lies and theft. I have no reason to be jealous of a fraud." The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, had seen enough. She didn't even wait for a full trial. She issued a summary judgment in my favour on all counts. Carter was ordered to dissolve the trust and sign the lake house property over to me, effective immediately. He was found liable for tampering with the will, and the full $100,000 plus interest and my legal fees was to be paid to me from the estate's accounts. The public shame was absolute. The headlines the next day were merciless. Carter and Angela were forced to move out of the house on Willow Creek Lane, not into a new home, but into a small 2-bedroom rental apartment on the other side of town. There was nowhere to hide. Their friends stopped calling. The family who had sided with them now looked at them with contempt. They had lost everything: the house, the money, and the carefully constructed image they had spent their lives cultivating. They were left with nothing but the ugly truth of who they really were. The house on Willow Creek Lane was quiet now. The roar of saws and the pounding of hammers had been replaced by a deep, hollow silence. New hardwood floors gleamed where stained carpet once lay. The walls, now a calm, neutral grey, held no ghosts of old photographs. Kai's crew had been meticulous. They had gutted the house down to the studs and rebuilt it into something clean, modern, and utterly unrecognisable. It was beautiful. A perfect, sterile box with no memory. I stood on the new front porch, the key to the new lock feeling foreign in my hand. For weeks, I'd been consumed by the fight. The depositions, the paperwork, the demolition. Now that it was over, I was left standing in the silence of my victory, unsure of what to do with the spoils. Sell it? Rent it out? Burn it to the ground and salt the earth? All 3 options held a certain appeal. My phone buzzed. It was a photo of a letter sent from Stacy. The original had been delivered to her office, as per my instructions to block all mail from my family. The envelope was plain, the handwriting the familiar, looping script of a teenage girl. It was from Marley. I zoomed in on the image. Aunt Hallie. "I'm sorry, not just for what my parents did, but for never trying to know you myself. I believed what they told me. I see now that they were the ones who were wrong. You were right about everything. I hope you find peace with the house. Someday, I hope we can talk again. Marley." I read it twice, then locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket. It wasn't an olive branch for the family. It was a white flag from a single tired soldier who was done with a war she hadn't started. It was more than I ever expected. The sound of footsteps on the new porch steps made me turn. It was Kai, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee from the place down the street. He handed one to me, his expression unreadable as he surveyed his handiwork. "It turned out good," he said, taking a sip. "It's perfect," I agreed. We stood there for a minute, the silence comfortable between us. He glanced over at me, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. Nice revenge. Expensive, huh? I knew he wasn't just talking about the renovation costs. He meant the time, the energy, the emotional toll of waging such a calculated war. He was right. It had cost me the last shred of any connection to the people who shared my blood. It had cost me years of my life I'd never get back. It was, I admitted, the coffee warming my hands, but it was worth it. I didn't do this for vengeance. Well, not only for vengeance. I did it because for 38 years my silence had been mistaken for weakness. My independence was called coldness. My refusal to play their games was labelled moody. They had spent my entire life writing a narrative for me, and I had finally picked up the pen and written my own ending. I did it so that silence wouldn't always mean defeat. The next day, I called my real estate agent. "List it," I said. "For full market value, not a penny less." The house sold in a week for over asking price. When the money cleared, I made 2 transfers. The first was to pay back every cent I had spent on the renovation and legal fees. The second, a substantial six-figure sum, was a wire transfer. It was an anonymous donation to a national fund that provides legal aid and housing assistance for young women raised in abusive homes. I never stepped foot in that house again. I didn't need to. I had the lake house now, a quiet piece of land waiting for new blueprints. I had my business. I had my life, free of the ghosts of Willow Creek Lane. They begged me to stop, but they should have begged me to stay when I was still trying to belong.
The paper plate made a sad little thunk when my mother set it down in front of me. "There you go, sweetie," Meredith said, her voice dripping with that particular brand of fake sweetness she reserved for public displays of motherhood. "I know you're used to eating with the kids anyway." My name is Nicole, and I should have turned around and walked out right then. But I didn't. I never did. Benjamin got the good china, of course. The wedding china with the delicate gold rim that only came out for special occasions, which apparently meant any time my Harvard-educated finance bro brother graced us with his presence. His fiancée Jocelyn got matching plates naturally. Even Dad got real dishes. Me? Paper plate royalty, population 1. "So, Nicole," Benjamin said, cutting into his perfectly grilled steak with actual silverware while I held a plastic fork, "still playing house with other people's kids?" The backyard fell silent except for the sizzle of the grill. Dad cleared his throat. Jocelyn examined her manicure. Meredith actually smiled. "She's doing very well for herself," Dad offered weakly. "Oh, I'm sure she is," Benjamin continued, that smirk spreading across his face like spilled wine on white fabric. "What's the going rate for professional babysitting these days? 15 an hour? 20 if you're really good with diapers?" Jocelyn giggled. Actually giggled. "I work with families," I said quietly, cutting my steak with the edge of my plastic fork. "I help parents." Right, Benjamin waved his hand dismissively. "You're like what do they call it? A nanny? That's adorable, really." "Most people grow out of playing mommy, but hey, if it pays the bills." Meredith leaned forward, her eyes bright with the kind of malicious joy that comes from watching someone else get torn down. "Benjamin's just gotten another promotion, you know. Senior vice president now. They're talking about making him partner before he's 35. 34, actually," Benjamin corrected, puffing up like a peacock. "Youngest in the firm's history." "Meanwhile," Meredith continued, turning to me with that smile that never reached her eyes, "Nicole's still changing diapers and singing lullabies to millionaire babies. At least someone's children are getting the benefit of her talents." The way she said talents made it sound like a disease. I took another bite of steak, chewed slowly, swallowed. "Must be nice," Jocelyn chimed in, "having such a simple life. No stress, no real responsibilities. Just playing with toys all day." "And the best part," Benjamin added, leaning back in his chair like he owned the world, "is that there's no pressure to actually succeed at anything. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? A kid cries? Oh no." They all laughed. Even Dad managed a weak chuckle. I set down my plastic fork and reached into my purse. The glossy brochure felt smooth between my fingers as I pulled it out and placed it gently on the table. The laughter died. Meredith's eyes locked onto the image immediately. I watched her face change, the cruel smile melting into something hungry and desperate. "Is that?" she whispered. "The lake house on Willow Creek," I said simply. "The one you've been talking about for, 15 years now?" Meredith's hand shot out to grab the brochure, her fingers trembling slightly as she opened it. "Oh my God, it's back on the market." "I thought it sold," Dad said, leaning over to look. "It did," Meredith breathed, her voice thick with longing. "But the buyers fell through. I've been checking the listing every single day for 3 years. Every single day." Benjamin rolled his eyes. "Mom, you can't afford that place. It's what, $2 million? 3? 4.2. I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. I looked it up, I shrugged. Seemed like something you'd want to know. Meredith clutched the brochure to her chest like a love letter. It's perfect. The wraparound porch, the private dock, those gorgeous bay windows, I could host book club there, garden parties. Benjamin, you and Jocelyn could have your wedding reception there. If we could afford it, Benjamin muttered. We could take out a loan, Meredith said desperately. Use the house as collateral, or maybe your father's retirement fund. Meredith, Dad warned. I watched this little family drama unfold, feeling strangely detached from it all. Like I was watching a movie where I already knew the ending. Well, I said, standing up and brushing imaginary crumbs from my lap. I should probably get going. Early day tomorrow. Of course, Meredith said absently, still staring at the brochure. More babysitting. Something like that. I walked toward the house, leaving my paper plate on the table like the peasant I was supposed to be. But just before I reached the door, I turned back and smiled. Oh, and Mom? You might want to keep an eye on that listing. I hear it's going to sell fast. The rejection letter from State University arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because it was the same day Benjamin got his acceptance to Harvard. Nicole, honey, come downstairs. Meredith's voice rang through the house like a dinner bell. We have news to celebrate. I was 17, sitting on my bedroom floor surrounded by college brochures for early childhood education programs. The thin envelope from State sat unopened on my desk. I already knew what it said. Thin envelopes never brought good news. When I got downstairs, Benjamin was holding a thick packet, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Which, in Meredith's eyes, he basically had. Harvard! She shrieked, throwing her arms around him. My baby got into Harvard! Dad clapped Benjamin on the back. Knew you had it in you, son. Full academic scholarship, too, Benjamin said, because of course he did. They said my essay on economic theory was exceptionally mature for someone my age. Meredith pressed her hands to her chest like she might faint from pride. I have to call everyone. Your Aunt Susan, the neighbors, my book club. What about Nicole? Dad asked, noticing me standing in the doorway. Any word from your schools? I held up the thin envelope. State University. Didn't get in. The celebration didn't exactly stop, but it definitely dimmed. Like someone had put a lampshade over the sun. Oh, Meredith said, her voice flat. Well, there are other schools. What were you applying for again? Benjamin asked, though I'd told him a dozen times. Early childhood development. I want to study child psychology, maybe get into family counseling. Benjamin snorted. You want to major in toys? It's not toys, I said quietly. It's about understanding how children develop emotionally, how to help them process trauma, build confidence. Sweetie, Meredith interrupted, maybe this is a sign. College is expensive, and if you're just going to end up babysitting anyway, I'm not just babysitting. I want to help families, make a difference in kids' lives. That's very noble, she said in the tone people use when they mean the opposite. But Benjamin needs our focus right now. Harvard is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. 3 months later, I was watching 4-year-old Emma Rodriguez build a tower out of blocks while her mother worked from home upstairs. Miss Nicole, Emma said, carefully placing another block on top, why do some towers fall down? Well, I said, sitting cross-legged beside her, sometimes the foundation isn't strong enough. Or sometimes we build too fast without making sure each piece is secure. Emma nodded seriously, like I'd just explained quantum physics. Like when Mommy and Daddy yell, their tower falls down? My heart clenched. Emma's parents had been fighting a lot lately, loud enough that the neighbors complained. Sometimes grown-ups forget how to build their towers, I said carefully. But that doesn't mean it's your fault when they fall down. Emma looked at me with those huge brown eyes. Will you teach me how to build strong towers? Every day, I promised. That night, I called Selena. I think I'm actually good at this, I told her, pacing around my tiny apartment. Of course you are, Selena said. You've been taking care of everyone else's emotional needs since we were kids. Remember when you talked me through my parents' divorce in 8th grade? This is different. These kids actually listen to me. They trust me. Unlike your family. I winced. Selena. What? I'm just saying. You've got this gift for making people feel heard and valued, but your own family treats you like you're invisible. They don't. Nicole, your mom served you dinner on a paper plate last week. I couldn't argue with that. You know what you should do, Selena continued. Start recording some of this stuff, the things you tell the kids, the techniques you use. Parents would eat that up. Who's going to listen to a college dropout with no credentials? Someone who actually knows what they're talking about, which you do. 6 months later, I was working for the Shepherds. Michaela was 8 then, all wild curls and fierce intelligence. Her mother Sarah was battling cancer, and her father Clark had basically disappeared into his work to avoid dealing with reality. Why doesn't Daddy come home anymore? Michaela asked one afternoon while we worked on her homework. Sometimes when people are scared, they run away, I said. Even grown-ups. Are you scared of anything, Miss Nicole? I thought about it. Yeah, I'm scared of not mattering. Michaela looked up from her math worksheet. You matter to me. That night, after Michaela was asleep, I sat in my car in their driveway and pulled out my phone. I'd been thinking about what Selena said for months. I opened the camera app and hit record. Hi, I whispered into the phone. I'm Nicole, and I spend my days with some pretty amazing kids who've taught me more about life than any textbook ever could. I paused, looking back at the house where Michaela was probably dreaming about anything but her mother's illness. Today, I want to talk about validation, about how powerful it is to tell a child that their feelings matter, that they matter. Because here's the thing, kids know when you're just going through the motions, and they know when you really see them. I talked for 10 minutes about active listening, about getting down to a child's eye level, about the difference between hearing and understanding. When I finished, I stared at the video for a long time before finally uploading it to a new account I created. Raising Whole Humans. 3 people watched it that first night. By morning, it was 12. 3 years later, I was sitting in a coffee shop with Selena, staring at my laptop screen in disbelief. 200,000, I said for the 3rd time. My book sold 200,000 copies. And that's just in the first 6 months, Selena said, practically bouncing in her chair. The publisher wants to talk about a sequel. And did you see the email from that parenting brand? They want to sponsor your next video series. I scrolled through my inbox. Collaboration requests, speaking engagements, interview requests from podcasts I'd never heard of. My Raising Whole Humans account had 1.2 million followers. This is insane, I muttered. This is what happens when you actually know what you're talking about, Selena said. Remember that video you did about bedtime routines? It has 4 million views. The one I filmed in my pajamas at midnight because I couldn't sleep. That's the one. Parents were sharing it like crazy. Finally, someone who gets it, they kept saying. My phone buzzed with a text from my current family, the Washingtons. Nicole, thank you so much for the advice about Emma's anxiety. She actually slept through the night for the first time in weeks. You're a miracle worker. Speaking of which, Selena said, pulling out a folder, we need to talk business. I've been managing your brand deals and sponsorships, but this is getting too big for me to handle part-time. She slid a contract across the table. I want to quit my marketing job and work for you full-time. Operations manager, business development, whatever you need. I stared at the contract. Selena, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm begging. Do you know how much money you made last month? just from the book royalties and sponsored content? I shook my head. $47,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? And that's a slow month. The month your sleep training course launched, you made $82,000. The numbers felt surreal. 6 months ago, I was making $20 an hour watching other people's kids. Now I was apparently running a business empire from my studio apartment. There's just one thing, Selena said carefully. Your family still thinks you're broke, right? They think I'm a struggling nanny who can barely pay rent. Why haven't you told them? I picked at my muffin. You know why. Nicole. Because the second they find out, everything changes. Suddenly I'll be worth their attention. Suddenly my opinions will matter. But it won't be because I'm their daughter or because I've always been this person. It'll be because I have money. Selena nodded slowly. So what's the plan? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Meredith's name flashed on the screen. Perfect timing, I muttered, answering the call. Hi, Mom. Nicole, honey, I need to talk to you. Her voice was thick with tears, which was unusual. Meredith didn't cry unless there was an audience. What's wrong? It's the house, the lake house. It's back on the market. I sat up straighter. Again? The second buyer fell through. Something about financing. Nicole, this is my last chance. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like that house is meant to be mine. I've dreamed about it for so long. Selena raised an eyebrow, clearly listening to every word. Mom, houses don't work that way. If you can't afford it. I know. But maybe there's a way. Your father's been talking about taking out a loan against his retirement fund. And Benjamin said he might be able to help with the down payment. Benjamin said that? Well, he said he'd think about it. The point is, I can't let this opportunity slip away again. I've been driving by that house every week for 3 years, Nicole. Every week. I could hear the desperation in her voice. The same desperation I'd felt every time I tried to get her attention as a kid. I have to go, Mom. I'm at work. Of course, sweetie. Give those babies extra hugs from Grandma. She hung up, and I stared at my phone for a long moment. You're thinking about it, Selena said. Thinking about what? Buying the house. I looked at her. That's crazy. Is it? You could afford it. Cash. And then what? Give it to her? Surprise, Mom. Your failure daughter just bought you a $4 million house? Selena leaned forward. Or you could buy it and not give it to her. The idea hit me like a lightning bolt. I opened my laptop and pulled up the real estate listing. The house was gorgeous. Exactly the kind of place Meredith had always dreamed of. Wraparound porch, private dock, those bay windows she'd obsessed over. I can't just buy a house to spite my mother. You wouldn't be buying it to spite her, Selena said quietly. You'd be buying it for someone who actually deserves it. I thought about Michaela, now 13 and still dealing with her father's emotional absence. Sarah had passed away 2 years ago, and Clark had thrown himself even deeper into work. Michaela spent most afternoons alone, texting me about school drama and friend problems. The Michaela Shepherd Trust, I said suddenly. What? If I buy the house, I put it in a trust. For Michaela. She gets a stable place to call home, somewhere she can feel safe and loved. Selena grinned. And your mother gets to watch someone else live her dream. I stared at the listing photos, my finger hovering over my phone screen. This is either the most generous thing I've ever done, I said, or the most petty. Why can't it be both? Clark answered his phone on the 4th ring, sounding exhausted. Nicole, is everything okay? It's kind of late. I was sitting in my car outside the lake house, staring at the for sale sign. I need to talk to you about Michaela. What about her? Did something happen? Nothing happened, but I have a proposition, and I need you to hear me out before you say no. Silence. Then, I'm listening. I want to buy a house and put it in a trust for Michaela. Somewhere she can have stability, somewhere that's actually hers. Nicole, what are you talking about? You can't afford... I can afford it. Another pause. Longer this time. How can you afford it? That's not important right now. What's important is Michaela. She's been bouncing between your place and her aunt's house since Sarah died. She needs somewhere permanent. She has somewhere permanent. She has me. Clark, when's the last time you were home before 8 p.m.? No answer. She texts me every day after school because there's nobody else to talk to. She's 13 and she's raising herself. I'm doing my best here, Nicole. You think this is easy for me? I think you're drowning, and you're so focused on not going under that you can't see she's drowning too. I heard him take a shaky breath. What kind of house are we talking about? It's on Willow Creek. 4 bedrooms, private dock, big yard. She could have friends over, throw parties when she's older. It would be hers, legally. The trust would cover taxes and maintenance until she turns 18. This sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? I closed my eyes. There's no catch. I care about her, Clark. I've cared about her since she was 8 years old and asking me why her daddy didn't come home anymore. Jesus, Nicole. I'm not trying to replace you. I'm trying to give her something I never had, a place where she matters, where she's the priority. And what do you get out of this? The honest answer was too complicated to explain. How do you tell someone that buying a house for their daughter is partly about healing your own childhood wounds? That every time you see Michaela struggle with feeling invisible, you see yourself at 13, desperate for someone to notice you existed? I get to know she's okay, I said instead. Clark was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Can I see it first? Of course. 2 days later, I met Clark and Michaela at the house. The realtor, Janet, was already there with the keys. Oh my God, Michaela breathed, staring up at the wraparound porch. This place is incredible. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, Janet said, launching into her sales pitch. Original hardwood floors, updated kitchen, private dock with deep water access. We walked through the house, and I watched Michaela's face light up at every room. She ran her hands along the bay window seats, peered out at the dock, claimed the bedroom with the best lake view. Dad, look at this bathroom, she called from upstairs. It has one of those fancy tubs. Clark stood in the living room, arms crossed, staring out at the water. This is a $4 million house, he said quietly. 4.2, I corrected. Nicole, I need you to be straight with me. How do you have this kind of money? I looked around to make sure Michaela was still upstairs. I started a business, online content about parenting. It took off. What kind of business makes $4 million? The kind where you actually help people instead of just talking about it. He studied my face. You're serious. Dead serious. And you want to give this to Michaela. Just like that. Not give. Trust. She'll own it when she turns 18, but she can live in it now. With you if you want. Or you can keep your place and she can stay here with a live-in caretaker. Miss Nicole, Michaela's voice echoed from upstairs. Come see this closet. It's bigger than my entire bedroom. Clark rubbed his forehead. This is insane. Dad! Michaela came running down the stairs. Can we get it? Please? I know it's probably too expensive, but maybe we could rent it or something? Clark looked at his daughter, really looked at her. For what seemed like the first time in months, she was practically glowing with excitement, more animated than I'd seen her since her mother died. Michaela, I said, what if I told you this house could be yours? What do you mean? I mean legally yours, in a trust with your name on it. Her eyes went wide. Are you serious? I'm serious. She looked between me and her father. But how? Why? Because you deserve a place that's just yours. Because you're one of the most amazing kids I've ever known, and amazing kids deserve amazing things. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. You would do that for me? I would do anything for you. She threw her arms around me and I felt something break open in my chest. This was what love looked like, not conditional, not performance-based, just pure and simple and real. Clark? I said over her shoulder. He was wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Yeah, he said roughly. Yeah, okay. Let's do it. Janet cleared her throat. So, should I draw up the paperwork? I smiled, still holding Michaela. Make it out to the Michaela Shepherd Trust. 3 weeks later, I stood in the empty living room of the lake house, watching contractors measure windows for new curtains. Michaela sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching furniture arrangements in a notebook. The couch should go here, she said, pointing to the wall facing the lake, so we can watch the sunrise while we eat breakfast. Good thinking, I said. What about the dining room? Big table, like really big. So I can have all my friends over for dinner parties when I'm older. The contractor, Mike, looked up from his measuring tape. You planning on entertaining a lot? I want this to be the kind of house where people feel welcome, Michaela said seriously. Where kids can come if they need somewhere safe to talk. Mike smiled. That's a pretty mature way to think about it. Miss Nicole taught me that homes should be about more than just having a place to sleep. They should be about feeling like you belong somewhere. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. At 13, Michaela understood things about love and belonging that my own family had never figured out. Speaking of which, I said, your dad's picking you up in an hour. You should probably pack up your sketches. Can I show you something first? She pulled out her phone and opened a video. I've been watching your content. My stomach dropped. Michaela, relax. I'm not going to out you or anything. But Nicole, this stuff is incredible. This video about helping kids process grief, it's like you were talking directly to me. She hit play, and my own voice filled the empty room. Grief isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry. And the goal isn't to make the sadness go away. It's to make room for joy to exist alongside it. That's when I knew, Michaela said, pausing the video. You didn't just buy me this house because you felt sorry for me. You bought it because you actually understand what it's like to feel invisible. Mike had stopped measuring and was pretending not to listen, but I could tell he was paying attention. Michaela, my mom used to say that some people are born knowing how to love people, and some people have to learn it the hard way. You learned it the hard way, didn't you? I sat down on the floor next to her. Yeah. I did. Is that why you haven't told your family about your business? Because you're afraid they'll only love the successful version of you? Sometimes I forgot how perceptive she was. Sarah had raised her to be emotionally intelligent, to ask the hard questions and sit with uncomfortable truths. Something like that. That's really sad, she said simply. They're missing out on knowing the real you. The real me isn't very impressive. Are you kidding? Michaela gestured around the room. You bought me a house. You've helped millions of parents raise happier kids. You made my dad cry happy tears for the first time since Mom died. How is that not impressive? Mike cleared his throat. Sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help overhearing. You're raising whole humans, aren't you? I nodded reluctantly. My wife follows your account religiously. She's always quoting your videos at me. Mike, Nicole says we need to validate Emma's feelings even when she's being unreasonable. Mike, Nicole says bedtime battles are really about connection, not control. Does it help? I asked. Our 4-year-old went from screaming every night to actually looking forward to bedtime. So yeah, it helps. Michaela beamed. See? You're changing lives. My phone buzzed with a text from Meredith. "Nicole, honey, can you come to dinner Sunday? Benjamin has news to share, and I want the whole family there." "Family dinner," I told Michaela, showing her the text. "Are you going to tell them?" "Tell them what?" "About this." She gestured around the room. "About me. About who you really are." I stared at the text message. Benjamin probably got another promotion or closed some big deal. There would be champagne and congratulations and stories about his brilliance. I'd sit there with my paper plate, listening to them celebrate someone who'd never once asked about my dreams. "I don't know," I said. "What if I came with you?" "Michaela, no. These dinners they're not fun." "I'm not going for fun. I'm going to meet the people who raised the woman who saved my life." "I didn't save your life. You gave me a home when my own father was too broken to see that I needed one. You showed up every day when everyone else disappeared." "You bought me a house, Nicole." "A house? How is that not saving my life?" Mike was openly listening now, not even pretending to work. "Besides," Michaela continued, "I want to see their faces when they realize what they've been missing. It's not about revenge, Michaela. I know. It's about truth. And the truth is that you're amazing, and they should know that." I looked around the room, at the bay windows Meredith had dreamed about, at the hardwood floors she'd imagined walking across, at the view she'd pictured enjoying every morning with her coffee. "Okay," I said, "but we're not telling them about the house until I'm ready." "Deal. But Nicole?" "Yeah?" "When you are ready, I want to be the one to hand them the deed." I smiled despite myself. "Why?" "Because I want to thank the person who gave me a home, and I want them to see exactly who that person is." Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt like walking into a museum exhibit titled "The Perfect American Family," if you ignored the paper plates and the daughter sitting in the corner. "Nicole!" Meredith exclaimed when I walked in with Michaela. "You brought a friend." "This is Michaela," I said. "I used to be her nanny." "Used to be?" Benjamin looked up from his phone. "Did you get fired?" "Her mother passed away," I said quietly. "I still help out sometimes." The room went awkward silent for exactly 3 seconds before Meredith recovered with her hostess smile. "Well, any friend of Nicole's is welcome here. Michaela, what a pretty name. Are you hungry, sweetheart?" "Starving," Michaela said politely. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Ryan." Jocelyn appeared from the kitchen carrying a bottle of champagne. "Benjamin, should I open this now or wait until after dinner?" "What are we celebrating?" I asked. Benjamin grinned. "Partnership track. They're fast-tracking me, youngest associate partner in the firm's history." "That's wonderful," I said, and meant it. "Congratulations." 60% salary increase, he continued, because Benjamin never met a success he couldn't quantify. Plus bonuses, plus equity. We're talking serious money. "How serious?" Michaela asked innocently. Benjamin puffed up. "Let's just say I could buy a pretty nice house with this year's bonus alone." "Speaking of houses," Meredith said, her voice turning wistful, "that lake house sold again, to some mystery buyer who paid cash. Can you imagine having that kind of money just sitting around?" I felt Michaela tense beside me. $4.2 million, Meredith continued. "In cash. The realtor said it was some kind of trust. Probably some tech billionaire buying it for their kid." "Must be nice," Jocelyn said, "having that kind of generational wealth. Some people are just born lucky." "Or they work for it," Michaela said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "I mean," she continued, "maybe whoever bought it earned that money. Maybe they built something meaningful and used their success to help someone they care about." Benjamin laughed. "Sweetheart, nobody makes $4 million helping people. That's investment money, trust fund money, old money. You don't think someone could build a business helping families?" "What kind of business?" Jocelyn asked, amused. I don't know. Maybe teaching parents how to raise emotionally healthy kids. Maybe writing books about child development. Maybe creating content that actually makes a difference in people's lives. The room fell silent. Meredith set down her wineglass. That's very idealistic, dear, she said carefully. But those kinds of ventures don't typically generate serious wealth. Why not? Michaela pressed. If someone was really good at it, if they helped millions of families, why couldn't that be worth millions of dollars? Benjamin was staring at Michaela now, something shifting in his expression. Because, he said slowly, parenting advice is a dime a dozen. Anyone can tell people how to raise kids. It's not exactly rocket science. Is it not? Michaela's voice was getting sharper. Because from what I've seen, most adults have no idea how to talk to children. They don't know how to validate emotions or set healthy boundaries or help kids process trauma. Michaela, I warned quietly. No, it's okay, she said, looking directly at Benjamin. I'm just curious about something. Do you have kids? Not yet, but... So you've never actually had to comfort a crying toddler at 3 a.m.? Never had to explain death to an 8-year-old? Never had to help a teenager work through anxiety or depression? Benjamin's jaw tightened. I don't need to have kids to understand that parenting isn't some complex professional skill. Then why are so many parents desperate for help? Michaela interrupted. Why do they spend billions of dollars on books and courses and therapy? Why are kids' mental health rates getting worse every year? Jocelyn was watching this exchange with growing interest, her eyes darting between Michaela and me. Maybe, Michaela continued, the person who bought that house actually understands something you don't. Maybe they know that helping families isn't just idealistic, it's essential. And maybe they're successful because they're actually good at something that matters. Michaela, I said again, but she was on a roll. Maybe they've spent years learning how to help kids feel seen and valued and understood. Maybe they've built something beautiful from nothing, and they're using their success to give other people the love and stability they never had. The room was dead silent now. Even Dad had looked up from his newspaper. Jocelyn cleared her throat. You seem to know a lot about this mysterious buyer. Michaela smiled. I know a lot about people who help kids. I've been lucky enough to have someone like that in my life. She looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. A question, a challenge, a promise. Actually, she said, reaching into her purse, there's something I want to show everyone. My heart stopped. Michaela, don't... But she was already pulling out a folded document, her hand steady as she placed it on the dining room table. I want to thank the person who gave me a home. Michaela unfolded the document with the deliberate care of someone defusing a bomb. This, she said, smoothing out the creases, is the deed to 847 Willow Creek Lane. The lake house you've been dreaming about for 15 years, Mrs. Ryan. Meredith's wineglass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. Nobody moved to clean it up. What are you talking about? Benjamin demanded, leaning forward to read the document. It's owned by the Michaela Shepherd Trust, Michaela continued, her voice steady and clear, which means it's legally mine, but I didn't buy it. She looked directly at me. Nicole did. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. That's impossible, Meredith whispered. Is it? Michaela asked. Nicole, how many followers do you have on your Raising Whole Humans account? My mouth felt like sandpaper. Michaela! 1.4 million, she answered for me. How many copies did your book sell? Don't. 300,000 and counting. How much did you make last month from your online courses and brand partnerships? Benjamin was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Nicole, what is she talking about? Michaela pulled out her phone and opened my Instagram account. This is Nicole. Raising Whole Humans. She's one of the most successful parenting influencers in the country. She scrolled through the posts. Videos of me talking about emotional regulation, photos of activities I'd designed, testimonials from grateful parents. 4 million views on this video alone, Michaela said, showing them my content about helping kids process grief. The one that got me through the worst year of my life. Jocelyn grabbed the phone, her eyes widening as she scrolled. Holy shit. This is you? You're the Nicole everyone's talking about? Language, Meredith said automatically, but her voice was faint. Mom, do you have any idea how big this is? Jocelyn turned the phone toward Benjamin. I follow her. I've been following her for months. She's massive. Benjamin snatched the phone, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. This can't be real, he said. Nicole doesn't, she can't what? Michaela asked sweetly. Be successful? Be talented? Be worth something? How long? Meredith's voice was barely a whisper. 3 years, I said quietly. It started 3 years ago. 3 years. Meredith stood up slowly, wine staining her white blouse. You've been lying to us for 3 years. I wasn't lying. I just wasn't telling you everything. You let us think you were struggling, Benjamin said, his voice rising. You sat there while you what? I asked. While you mocked me? While you called my work playing house? While you served me dinner on paper plates? We didn't know. You didn't know, because you never asked. You never once asked what I was actually doing with my life. You just assumed I was failing, because that fit your narrative better. Meredith was staring at the deed like it might bite her. You bought my house. I bought Michaela a house. There's a difference. You bought the house I've wanted for 15 years and gave it to a stranger. She's not a stranger. She's the daughter I chose to love. The words hung in the air like smoke. Meredith flinched as if I'd slapped her. That's cruel, she said. Is it? Or is it honest? Benjamin was still scrolling through my content, his face getting redder by the second. Do you have any idea what this looks like? My sister is some kind of internet celebrity, and I had no idea? Your sister, Michaela said, standing up, is someone who saw a 13-year-old girl losing her mother and decided to make sure she never felt alone. Your sister built an empire helping families love each other better. Your sister is extraordinary. She's manipulative, Meredith snapped. This whole thing is manipulative. Bringing you here, orchestrating this reveal, I orchestrated it, Michaela said calmly. Nicole didn't want to tell you. She was protecting you from the truth because she knew it would hurt your feelings to realize how wrong you've been about her. Wrong about what? About everything. Michaela's voice was getting stronger. You think she's the failure in this family? Look around. She's the only one who figured out how to love people without conditions. She's the only one who builds people up instead of tearing them down. Dad finally spoke from his corner. Nicole, is this all true? I nodded. The money, the business, the house, all of it? All of it. He set down his newspaper and looked at me. Really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in years. I'm proud of you, he said simply. Meredith whirled on him. Proud? She humiliated us. She made us look like fools. No, Michaela said, picking up the deed. You did that yourselves. She walked over to Meredith and held out the document. This house could have been yours. Nicole would have given it to you in a heartbeat if you'd ever once made her feel like she mattered to you. Instead, she gave it to someone who sees her worth. Meredith stared at the deed, but didn't take it. The useless daughter you never wanted, I said, standing up, turned out to be someone else's hero. I walked toward the door, Michaela beside me. Nicole, wait, Benjamin started. No, I said without turning around. I'm done waiting. The fallout started within hours. Selena called me while I was driving Michaela home. Nicole, your phone is blowing up. Someone recorded the whole thing and posted it on TikTok. What do you mean someone recorded it? Jocelyn. She live-streamed the entire reveal on her Instagram story. It's already been screen recorded and shared thousands of times. Paper plate revenge is trending. I pulled over, my hands shaking. This is a disaster. Actually, it's not. The comments are incredible. People are calling you a hero. This is what generational wealth should look like. She chose love over blood. Finally, someone who puts kids first. Michaela squeezed my arm. See? I told you people would understand. But not everyone understood. Benjamin called that night, his voice tight with panic. Nicole, you have to fix this. The partners at my firm saw the video. They're asking questions about my family situation, about why I didn't know my sister was successful. It's making me look out of touch. I'm sorry your reputation is suffering, I said, not sorry at all. This isn't a joke. My promotion could be in jeopardy. Can't you post something? Explain that it was all a misunderstanding? What misunderstanding? That you spent years treating me like garbage? That you never once asked about my life? That you mocked my career while I was building an empire? Nicole, please. I hung up. The next call was from Dad. Your mother liquidated her retirement account, he said without preamble. What? She was so desperate to buy that house before you revealed the truth. She took out loans, cashed in everything. She was planning to make an offer this week. My stomach dropped. Dad, I didn't know. I know you didn't. But Nicole, we're in serious financial trouble now. The house sold, the money's gone, and we're left with debt we can't handle. How much debt? Enough that we might lose our house. I closed my eyes. This wasn't what I'd wanted. I'd wanted them to see my worth, not destroy their lives. Dad, let me help. No, your mother won't accept money from you. She's too proud, too angry. She keeps saying you planned this, that you wanted to ruin us. I didn't want to ruin anyone. I know. But intentions don't always match consequences. The hardest call came from Clark. Nicole, I need you to stay away from Michaela. What? Why? Because this whole thing has gotten out of control. She's 13 years old, and she's being dragged through social media drama. People are calling our house wanting interviews. She missed school today because reporters were waiting outside. Clark, I never meant for this to happen. I know, but it did happen. And now my daughter is in the middle of some viral revenge story instead of just being a kid. She loves that house. It's her home now. A home that comes with a price I didn't understand. I'm putting it on the market. You can't do that. It's in her trust. I'm her father. I can dissolve the trust if I think it's in her best interest. And right now, I think the best thing for Michaela is distance from all of this. The line went dead. I sat in my apartment that night, scrolling through the comments on the viral video. Most were supportive, but some cut deep. Using a grieving child as a prop for revenge is disgusting. This isn't heartwarming, it's manipulative. She destroyed her own family for internet points. Maybe they were right. Maybe I'd let my pain turn me into someone I didn't recognize. My doorbell rang. I opened it to find Michaela standing there with a letter in her hands. I walked here, she said. Dad doesn't know. Michaela, you can't just... I wrote you something. She held out the letter. Before you read it, I need you to know that what happened at dinner wasn't your fault. I chose to reveal the truth because I was tired of watching them treat you like you didn't matter. I unfolded the letter, written in her careful 13-year-old handwriting. Dear Nicole, my mom used to say that some people are born knowing how to love, and some people have to learn it the hard way. You learned it the hard way, but you learned it better than anyone. You didn't buy me a house to hurt your family. You bought it because you saw a kid who needed to know she was worth something. That's not revenge. That's love. I know Dad wants to sell it, and I know you're feeling guilty about everything that happened, but I need you to know that for the first time since Mom died, I felt like someone chose me first. Not out of obligation or guilt, but because they actually wanted me to be happy. That feeling is worth more than any house. You taught me that homes aren't built on blood. They're built on the people who show up, who stay, who choose to love you even when it's hard. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing me. Love, Michaela. P.S. I don't care what anyone says online. You're not manipulative. You're just someone who figured out how to turn pain into purpose. That's not something to apologize for. I looked up to find her watching me with those wise eyes. Michaela, I'm so sorry this got so complicated. It was always going to be complicated, she said. That's what happens when you finally tell the truth after years of hiding it. But complicated doesn't mean wrong. She hugged me tight. Besides, she said, pulling back with a grin, I've decided I don't want to sell the house. Your dad said, my dad's scared. But I'm not. I want to keep it, and I want you to help me turn it into something amazing. A place where kids like us can come when they need to remember they're worth something. I stared at her. Kids like us? Kids who had to learn the hard way that love isn't guaranteed. Kids who know what it feels like to be invisible. Kids who need someone to choose them first. She was right. The house wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about transformation, taking something my mother coveted and turning it into something that actually mattered. What do you think? Michaela asked. Want to build something beautiful together? I smiled, thinking about all the paper plates and dismissive comments and years of feeling invisible. Yeah, I said. Let's build something beautiful. Turns out, some homes are built on love, not blood, and even paper plates can carry power if you know how to serve what's on them. The note was sitting on my kitchen counter when I got home from selling my last painting. Cream-colored paper, Mom's careful handwriting in blue ink. Thank you for organizing everything, Maya. I know Amelia must have helped. I stared at those words until they blurred. Amelia didn't help. Amelia didn't even know I'd been planning this party for 3 months. My name is Maya, and I'm about to tell you how I spent $15,000 trying to buy my mother's love. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. You sold the Costa Rica piece? Kayla's voice crackled through my phone as I paced around my now half-empty apartment. The walls looked naked without my artwork covering them. Had to. The venue deposit was due yesterday. I kicked at a paint tube on the floor. Mom's 60th only happens once, right? Maya, honey, you canceled therapy for this party. You liquidated your savings. You postponed your dream trip to Costa Rica. For what? I walked to my laptop and pulled up the party planning spreadsheet. 67 line items. Rooftop venue with city views. Live jazz quartet. Custom floral arrangements. Open bar. 3-course dinner for 40 guests. Every detail perfect. She's going to love it, I said, more to convince myself than Kayla. When she sees what I put together, when she realizes I did this all myself. What you did all yourself, not Amelia. Right. Not Amelia. But even as I said it, something twisted in my stomach. Because I knew my family. I knew how these things went. Remember my college graduation? I asked Kayla. The one where your mom spent the whole dinner talking about Amelia's promotion? Or my art show last year. The one where Mom showed up 20 minutes late because Amelia needed help picking out curtains. Kayla sighed. So why are you doing this? I looked at the note again. At those careful words that somehow managed to erase me, even while thanking me. Because maybe this time will be different. The next morning, I drove to the party supply store to pick up the custom banner I'd ordered. Gold lettering on cream fabric. Celebrating 60 years of Lorraine. Simple, elegant, expensive. The teenager behind the counter handed me the package. Big party? My mom's 60th. Rooftop venue, live music, the works. Sounds amazing. She's lucky to have a daughter who cares so much. I smiled, but it felt fragile. I hope she thinks so. My phone buzzed. Text from Amelia. Can't wait for tomorrow. You're so sweet to help Mom with the party planning. Help, not organize, not plan, not fund with my entire savings account. Help. I typed back. Actually, I planned the whole thing myself. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, of course, I just meant help in general. You know what I mean? I knew exactly what she meant. That afternoon, I sat in my car outside Mom's house, holding the custom portrait I'd painted of her. It had taken me weeks to get her expression right, the way she smiled in family photos, genuine but guarded. I'd used her favorite colors, soft blues and creams, and painted it on canvas I'd stretched myself. The front door opened before I could knock. Maya. Perfect timing. I was just telling Lillian about tomorrow. Mom stepped aside to let me in. Her best friend Lillian sat at the kitchen table, coffee cup in hand. The party's going to be incredible, Lillian said. Amelia really outdid herself with the planning. I felt my smile freeze. Actually, I planned. Oh, you helped too, of course, Mom interrupted. You girls work so well together. I held up the wrapped portrait. I brought your gift early. I wanted to give it to you privately. Mom's face lit up as she unwrapped it. For a moment, just a moment, I saw real joy in her eyes. Maya, this is beautiful. You're so talented. I painted it from that photo of you in the garden. Remember? The one from last summer. It's lovely, sweetheart. Really. She propped it against the wall. I'll have to find the perfect spot for it. Lillian leaned over to look. How nice. You should do one of Amelia next. She'd love that. And just like that, the moment was over. I drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Tomorrow would be different. It had to be. I'd spent everything I had, sacrificed everything I wanted to make this party perfect. Tomorrow, they'd finally see me. I pulled into my driveway and checked my phone. Another text from Mom. Thank you again for all your help with tomorrow. Amelia's going to be so surprised by how beautiful everything looks. I stared at that message until the screen went dark. The rooftop looked like something out of a magazine. Golden hour light streamed across the city skyline, casting everything in warm amber. The jazz quartet played softly in the corner, while guests mingled around cocktail tables draped in cream linens. White roses and baby's breath cascaded from tall centerpieces, exactly like the Pinterest board I'd obsessed over for weeks. I stood near the bar, watching my family laugh and dance. My cousin Jordan spun his wife around to the music. Uncle Taylor chatted with some of Mom's old friends. Everyone looked happy, relaxed, perfect. Maya! Aunt Sarah grabbed my arm. This is absolutely stunning. You must be so proud. Thank you. I wanted everything to be perfect for Mom. Well, you certainly delivered. The flowers alone must have cost a fortune. I smiled and excused myself to check on the catering. The servers were setting up the dinner stations, everything running smoothly. I'd coordinated every detail down to the minute. There's my party planner. Mom appeared beside me, radiant in the navy dress I'd helped her pick out. Everything looks incredible, sweetheart. I'm so glad you love it. Happy birthday, Mom. She squeezed my hand. I can't believe Amelia managed to pull all this together with her busy schedule. My stomach dropped. Mom, Amelia didn't... Maya! Amelia's voice cut through the music. She glided over in a flowing emerald dress, looking effortlessly elegant. Isn't this amazing? I can't believe how perfectly everything came together. She hugged Mom, then turned to me with that practiced smile. You did such a good job helping me execute the vision. I didn't help execute anything. I planned this entire party myself. Amelia laughed, that tinkling sound she made when she was about to say something cutting. Of course you did so much work. I couldn't have done it without you handling all the little details. Little details, like the venue, the catering, the music, the flowers, everything. Actually, I started, but Mom was already being pulled away by Lillian. Lorraine, you have to meet my daughter's friend. She's in event planning too. I watched them walk away, leaving me standing there with Amelia. You look tense, she said, adjusting one of the centerpieces. Try to enjoy yourself. This is Mom's night. I know it's Mom's night. That's why I spent 3 months planning it. We both did our part. She smiled at a passing waiter. Oh, excuse me, could we get more champagne at table 6? The waiter nodded and hurried off. Amelia turned back to me. See? Teamwork. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. The dinner was perfect. The salmon was cooked exactly right, the wine pairings were spot on, and the chocolate cake I'd special ordered from Mom's favorite bakery got rave reviews. I sat at the family table watching everyone enjoy themselves, feeling a cautious hope building in my chest. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment everything changed. Ladies and gentlemen, Mom stood up, tapping her champagne glass with a fork. If I could have your attention for just a moment. The rooftop fell quiet except for the soft jazz still playing in the background. I want to thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate with me. 60 years feels like both a lifetime and no time at all. She paused, looking around at the faces gathered around her. But I have to say, I'm overwhelmed by the love and effort that went into making this evening so special. I held my breath. When I think about what it means to have family, I think about people who put others before themselves, people who work quietly behind the scenes to make magic happen. She raised her glass. Amelia, sweetheart, this party is absolutely perfect. You've outdone yourself. I'm so lucky to have a daughter who would go to such lengths to make her mother feel loved. The applause erupted around me, but it sounded muffled, like I was underwater. I watched Amelia stand up, graciously accepting the praise, her face glowing with humble pride. Oh, Mom, you know I'd do anything for you, Amelia said, her voice carrying across the rooftop. Family comes first, always. More applause. Someone whistled. Jordan raised his glass. To Amelia, for being such a devoted daughter. To Amelia. The glasses clinked around me. I sat frozen, watching my sister bask in the recognition for work I'd done, money I'd spent, dreams I'd sacrificed. Maya helped too, Amelia added, almost as an afterthought. She's always so good with the little details. A few people nodded politely in my direction, before turning their attention back to Amelia, who was now telling a story about how challenging it was to coordinate everything with her demanding work schedule. I excused myself to the bathroom and locked the door. In the mirror, I looked pale, hollow-eyed, like a ghost at my own party. My phone buzzed, a notification from Facebook. Mom had posted a photo of the family table, everyone raising their glasses to Amelia. The caption read, "My amazing daughter Amelia outdid herself tonight. So grateful for her thoughtfulness and love. Blessed Charcher family, Chart's 60th birthday." 43 likes already. Comments pouring in. Amelia is such a sweetheart. What a thoughtful daughter. You raised her right, Lorraine. I stared at that post until my hands started shaking. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Amelia's face glowing in the candlelight as everyone toasted her. I kept checking Facebook, watching the likes climb on Mom's post. 67 now. Each one felt like a knife twist. My phone rang at 2 a.m. Kayla. I saw the post, she said without preamble. Are you okay? I'm fine. Maya. I'm not fine. I'm the opposite of fine. I just spent $15,000 to watch my sister get credit for my work. Again. What are you going to do? I stared at the ceiling. Nothing. What can I do? Correct every person who comments? Post my bank statements as proof? Actually, that's not a terrible idea. Kayla. I'm serious. You have receipts, you have emails, you have 3 months of planning documents. And I'll look like a bitter, jealous sister if I post them. Or you'll look like someone telling the truth. After she hung up, I opened my laptop and started scrolling through old photos. There it was. My high school graduation. Mom's Facebook post. So proud of both my girls today. Amelia's Dean's List achievement and Maya's graduation. What a day. Amelia had graduated 3 years earlier. She wasn't even at my ceremony. My college graduation. Celebrating Maya's big day. Amelia drove 4 hours to be here for her sister. The photo showed Amelia on her phone during my speech. My first art show. Maya's opening night. So grateful Amelia could take time from her busy schedule to support family. Amelia had shown up 20 minutes before closing, stayed for 10 minutes, and left early for a date. Every milestone, every achievement, somehow became about Amelia's sacrifice or support. Even when she wasn't there. Even when she actively made things worse. I kept scrolling. Found the text thread from last month when I was planning the party. Me. Hey, can you help me pick a caterer for Mom's party? Amelia. Super swamped with work. You're so good at this stuff anyway. Just pick whatever you think is best. Me. What about flowers? I'm torn between roses and peonies. Amelia. Either works. You have great taste. BTW, try to keep things low-key so the family image stays coordinated. You know how you can be. How I can be. Meaning what? Caring too much? Trying too hard? Actually showing up? I screenshot the conversation and kept digging. Found the email thread with the venue coordinator. Every single message from my email address. Found the payment confirmations, all from my bank account. Found the vendor contracts, all signed by me. My phone buzzed. A Facebook notification. Someone had commented on Mom's party post. Lawrence Phillips. Just like old times. Invisible Maya strikes again. Lawrence. We'd gone to high school together. He'd seen this dynamic play out at every school event, every family gathering, every birthday party for 18 years. The comment had 3 likes already. I clicked on his profile. He was a journalist now, working for some online magazine. His bio said he specialized in untold stories and overlooked voices. Before I could stop myself, I was typing. Me. Hey Lawrence, saw your comment on Mom's post. Want to hear the real story? He responded within minutes. Lawrence. Always. You free to talk? We ended up on a video call that lasted 2 hours. I showed him everything. The bank statements, the planning emails, the vendor contracts, the pattern of credit stealing that went back decades. This is wild, he said, leaning back in his chair. You've been documenting this your whole life without realizing it. I wasn't documenting anything. I was just living. Maya, you need to tell this story. Not to me, not to a journalist. You need to tell it yourself. What do you mean? Make a video. Post it yourself. Let people see what really happened. I can't do that to my family. What did they just do to you? After we hung up, I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by the spaces where my paintings used to hang. The walls looked like missing teeth. I opened my laptop and clicked on the camera icon. The red recording light blinked at me. Hi, I said to the camera, then stopped, started again. My name is Maya, and I want to tell you about what it's like to be the discarded daughter. I talked for 23 minutes straight. About the party, about the money, about the pattern. about selling my art and canceling therapy and giving up Costa Rica, about watching my sister take credit for my work while my mother smiled and applauded. I showed the receipts, the bank statements, the emails, the Facebook posts going back years. When I finished, my face was streaked with tears I didn't remember crying. I stared at the upload button for 10 minutes. Then I clicked it. The title read, "What It's Like to Be the Discarded Daughter, My Story." I closed the laptop and went to bed. When I woke up 6 hours later, the video had 847 views. By noon, it had 12,000. By evening, it had 89,000 views and 3,200 comments. This is my story too. I thought I was the only one. You're so brave for speaking out. Make this into a podcast. I'm sending this to my therapist. My phone was ringing non-stop. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize, friend requests from strangers, and one missed call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was 3 minutes of Mom sobbing. "Maya, honey, please call me back. I don't understand why you did this. People are saying horrible things about our family." "About me. Please, we need to talk. This isn't like you. Call me." I deleted it and opened my laptop. The video had hit 150,000 views overnight. The comment section was a mix of support and chaos. This gave me chills. I'm the Maya in my family too. Your sister sounds like a narcissist. Why are you airing your family's dirty laundry online? This is so fake. Nobody spends $15K on a birthday party. That last comment made me laugh. I screenshot my bank statement and posted it in the replies. My phone rang. "Kayla. Girl, you broke the internet. I just saw your video shared in 4 different Facebook groups. Is that good or bad?" "Depends. How do you feel about BuzzFeed wanting to interview you?" "What?" "Check your email. Also, someone from Good Morning America reached out. And there's a woman named Sarah from some podcast network." I opened my email. 47 unread messages. Interview requests, collaboration offers, people sharing their own stories. One subject line made me stop. "Your video saved my relationship with my daughter." I clicked it. "Dear Maya, I watched your video this morning and immediately called my youngest daughter to apologize. I've been doing to her what your mother did to you, always praising her older sister, always making her feel invisible. Thank you for opening my eyes. We're going to therapy together next week. Jennifer." My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more emails. Story after story of people recognizing themselves, their families, their pain in my words. "Maya, you there?" Kayla's voice pulled me back to the phone. "Yeah, sorry. This is insane. People are actually listening." "Of course they're listening. You told the truth. When's the last time you heard someone be this honest about family dysfunction?" My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi Maya, this is Rebecca from BuzzFeed. Would you be available for a quick call today about your viral video?" Before I could respond, another text came in. "Maya, it's Jordan. We need to talk. Can you call me?" Jordan, my cousin who was at the party, who saw everything. I called him back immediately. "Maya, thank God. I've been trying to figure out how to reach you since I saw your video. Are you calling to yell at me? Because I'm getting enough of that from—" "No. I'm calling to apologize and to tell you that you're not crazy." I sat down hard on my couch. "What?" "I saw what happened at the party. We all did. When your mom gave that toast, my wife literally turned to me and said, 'Didn't Maya plan this whole thing?' But nobody wanted to say anything because, family drama. So you all just watched Amelia take credit? We're cowards, Maya. I'm a coward. I've watched this happen to you for years and never said anything because it was easier to stay out of it." I could hear him take a shaky breath. "But watching your video, seeing you lay it all out like that, I can't pretend anymore. You've been getting screwed over by this family your whole life, and we all enabled it by staying quiet. Jordan, I'm not done. I posted on Facebook this morning, told everyone that you planned and paid for that entire party. That Amelia didn't lift a finger, that we all owe you an apology. I pulled up Facebook and found his post. It was long, detailed, and completely honest about what he'd witnessed. It already had 62 likes and 23 comments. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet. Your mom is furious. She's been calling everyone in the family, trying to do damage control. Says you're having some kind of breakdown. Of course she is. But here's the thing, not everyone's buying it. Uncle Taylor called me an hour ago. He said he's been thinking about your graduation party when you were 16. Remember? When Amelia organized it, but you did all the work. I remembered. I'd made all the food, decorated the backyard, invited everyone. Amelia showed up an hour before guests arrived and started directing people around like she'd planned everything. He remembers too. Says he's ashamed he never spoke up. My phone was buzzing with more texts, more emails, more notifications. The video had hit 200,000 views. Jordan, I have to go. The media wants to interview me. Good. Tell your story. All of it. Some of us should have been telling it years ago. After we hung up, I opened the BuzzFeed email and typed back, "Yes, I'm available to talk." Within an hour, I was on a video call with Rebecca, a young journalist with kind eyes and a notebook full of questions. "Walk me through the party planning process," she said. "Start from the beginning." I told her everything. The 3 months of coordination, the vendor meetings, the sleepless nights worrying about details. The $15,000 that represented my entire savings, my Costa Rica fund, my emergency money. "Do you have documentation of all this?" I shared my screen and showed her the email threads, the payment confirmations, the contracts. She took screenshots of everything. "This is incredible, Maya. You essentially have a paper trail proving your entire story." I wasn't trying to build a case. I was just trying to throw my mom a nice party. And instead, you documented a pattern of emotional abuse that's been going on for decades. The word abuse hit me like a slap. I wouldn't call it abuse. What would you call it? I stared at her through the screen, at my own face in the small video window. I looked tired, older than my 32 years. "Invisible," I said finally. "I'd call it being invisible." The BuzzFeed article went live at 6 a.m. By 8 a.m., my video had jumped to 400,000 views. By 10 a.m., my phone was completely unusable from all the notifications. The family group chat was on fire. "Mom, Maya, please call me. We need to discuss this privately." Uncle Taylor. "Lorraine, I think we need to have an honest conversation about how Maya's been treated." Aunt Sarah. "This is getting out of hand. Maya, take the video down." Jordan. "Sarah, did you even watch it? She's telling the truth." Aunt Sarah. "That's not the point. This is family business." Jordan. "Family business that's been hurting Maya for decades while we all look the other way." I scrolled through dozens more messages. The family was splitting into camps, those defending Mom and Amelia, and those finally acknowledging what they'd witnessed but never addressed. Notably absent from the chat, Amelia herself. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Maya, this is Dr. Patricia Williams from the Today Show. We'd love to have you on tomorrow morning to discuss your viral video about family dynamics." What? The Today Show? "Your story is resonating with millions of people. We think it's an important conversation about family favoritism and emotional neglect." Before I could answer, another call came in. Then another. CNN. Good Morning America. 3 different podcast networks. I turned my phone off and opened my laptop. The video had 600,000 views now. The comments were overwhelming. "I'm 45 and just realized I'm the discarded daughter in my family. Sending this to my therapist. Thank you for putting words to my experience. Your mother's Facebook post made me sick. The gaslighting is real. I'm the Amelia in my family and I'm horrified. Going to apologize to my sister right now. That last comment stopped me cold. I clicked on the profile. A woman named Jessica from Portland. Her recent post read, "After watching Maya's video, I realized I've been taking credit for my sister's work our entire lives. I called her this morning to apologize, and we talked for 3 hours. We're meeting for coffee tomorrow. Thank you, Maya, for showing me what I couldn't see." My doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, a delivery guy with a massive flower arrangement. The card read, "Thank you for your courage, from a fellow discarded daughter in Ohio. Rachel." Over the next hour, 5 more deliveries arrived. Flowers, chocolates, a bottle of wine, a care package with tea and bath bombs. All from strangers who'd watched my video and wanted to show support. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Maya, this is Antonio, Amelia's fiancé. Can we talk? I think you're being really unfair to your family. They love you." I stared at the message. Antonio, who'd barely spoken to me at the party except to make condescending comments about my artistic lifestyle. I typed back, "Unfair how? By telling the truth?" There are 2 sides to every story. Your family is devastated. Where was this concern when I was devastated? When I spent my life savings on a party and watched my sister take credit? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, "You're right to be upset. Maybe we could grab coffee and talk about it?" "I always thought you were the more interesting sister anyway." I screenshot the message immediately. Antonio, who was engaged to Amelia, was now trying to... What? Flirt with me? Console me? Play both sides? Another text came in. "I mean it. You've got this fire that's really attractive. Amelia's been pretty boring lately." I screenshot that one too. My phone rang. "Kayla. Please tell me you're seeing all this support pouring in for you. It's insane. People are sending me flowers. The Today Show wants me on tomorrow. Are you going to do it? I don't know. This is getting so big. What if I'm making a mistake? Maya, listen to me. You told your truth. That's not a mistake. The fact that it's resonating with hundreds of thousands of people means you're not alone in this experience. But my family... Your family had 32 years to treat you right. They chose not to. Now you're choosing to speak up." After we hung up, I opened the family group chat again. New messages had poured in. "Mom. Maya, I'm getting calls from reporters. Please stop this. Cousin Lisa. Just watched the video. Maya, I had no idea it was this bad. Aunt Sarah. Lisa, don't encourage this. Maya needs to take responsibility for her part in the family dynamics. Jordan. Sarah, what part? Being generous? Caring too much? Trying too hard to earn love she should have gotten freely? Uncle Taylor. I've been thinking about Maya's sweet 16, and her college graduation. And her art show opening. Sarah, we failed this girl. Aunt Sarah. Taylor, you're being manipulated by a one-sided story. Jordan. It's not one-sided when she has receipts for everything. I scrolled up and saw that someone had added a new person to the group chat. Amelia. Amelia. I can't believe you're all discussing me like I'm not a person. Maya, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Me. Where have you been for the last 24 hours while everyone else was dealing with this? Amelia. I've been trying to figure out how to fix this mess you've created. Me. The mess I created by telling the truth? Amelia. By airing our private family business online for strangers to judge. Jordan. Amelia. Maybe the real mess is how Maya's been treated all these years. Amelia. You don't understand our relationship. Maya has always been dramatic. She's always needed more attention. I stared at that message. Always been dramatic. Always needed more attention. I opened my camera app and hit record. Hi everyone, it's Maya again. I wanted to address something my sister just said in our family group chat. I held up my phone, showing Amelia's messages. This is what gaslighting looks like. When you speak up about being hurt, you're called dramatic. When you ask for basic recognition, you're accused of needing too much attention. I posted the video as a follow-up to my original one. Within an hour, it had 50,000 views and counting. My phone rang. Mom again. This time, I answered. Maya, thank God you answered. Mom's voice was shaky, desperate. We need to fix this. People are calling me at work. Strangers are messaging me on Facebook. This has to stop. Hi, Mom. How are you doing? How was your birthday party? Did you enjoy it? Silence. Maya, don't be like this. You know I appreciated everything you did. Do I? Because your Facebook post said Amelia did everything. I didn't want Amelia to feel left out. You know how sensitive she is about these things. I laughed, and it came out sharp. Amelia is sensitive about being left out? Mom, do you hear yourself? This isn't like you, Maya. You're usually so understanding. So mature about these situations. You mean I usually stay quiet while you erase me? I never erased you. You're being dramatic. There it was again. Dramatic. Mom, I have to go. I'm doing the Today Show tomorrow morning. You're what? Maya, no. You cannot go on national television and... I hung up. My laptop was pinging with new email notifications. I opened them to find something incredible. Business inquiries. A gallery in New York wanted to feature my work. A greeting card company wanted to license my designs. 3 different art collectors had reached out after seeing my paintings in the video. But the email that made me stop breathing was from a woman named Patricia Chen at the Morrison Foundation. Dear Maya, I watched your video and was moved by your story. I'm writing to inform you that the Morrison Foundation would like to offer you a $50,000 grant to establish an art foundation for under-recognized female artists. Your story embodies exactly the kind of overlooked talent we aim to support. Please call me at your earliest convenience. $50,000. More than 3 times what I'd spent on the party. I called Patricia immediately. Maya, I'm so glad you reached out. Your video has been shared in our office all morning. We've been looking for someone to spearhead a new initiative, and your story is exactly what we need. I don't understand. You want to give me money to start an art foundation? We want to fund your vision. You spoke about being discarded, overlooked. There are thousands of female artists in the same position. We want you to create a platform for them. I've never run a foundation before. But you've lived the experience. That's what matters. We'll provide mentorship and resources. The first grant should be named something meaningful to you. I knew immediately. The Discarded One Grant. Perfect. Can you come to New York next week to discuss details? After we hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen. In 2 days, I'd gone from invisible to having my own foundation. My phone buzzed. A text from Antonio. Saw your follow-up video. You're really going scorched earth, aren't you? I respect that. Coffee offer still stands. I screenshot it and typed back. Does Amelia know you're texting me? What Amelia doesn't know won't hurt her. She's been pretty cold lately anyway. All this stress from your video. Another screenshot. Then I had an idea. You know what, Antonio? Let's grab that coffee. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Cafe Luna downtown. Really? Great. Looking forward to it. I wasn't planning to show up. I was planning something better. I opened my camera app and started recording. Hi everyone, quick update. I'm launching an art foundation for under-recognized female artists, funded by the Morrison Foundation. The first grant will be called The Discarded One, for artists whose work has been overlooked, stolen, or credited to others. I paused, looking directly into the camera. I'm also sharing some interesting messages I've been receiving. I held up my phone, showing Antonio's texts. I'd blurred out his number but left his name visible. This is from my sister's fiancé. The same man who barely acknowledged me at the party is now sliding into my DMs, calling my sister boring and asking me out for coffee, while engaged to her. I posted the video and waited. It took exactly 17 minutes for my phone to explode. The family group chat was chaos. Jordan. Antonio, what the hell? Uncle Taylor. Is this real? Amelia, are you seeing this? Aunt Sarah. Maya, this is too far. You're destroying relationships now. Me. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just showing what was already broken. My phone rang. Amelia. Maya, you vindictive bitch. How could you do this to me? Do what? Show people what your fiancé is really like? You're trying to ruin my engagement. I didn't send those texts, Amelia. He did. You could have handled this privately. Like how you privately took credit for my work. Like how Mom privately erased me from her Facebook posts. This is different. No, it's not. It's just the first time the truth is inconvenient for you instead of me. She hung up. Within an hour, the video had 100,000 views. The comments were brutal. Antonio is trash. Amelia deserves better, but also karma. The golden child's perfect life is crumbling. I feel bad, but also don't. This family is toxic, top to bottom. Maya is serving justice on a silver platter. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Maya, this is Jennifer from People magazine. We'd like to do a feature story on your family situation and the foundation launch. Are you available for an interview? I looked around my apartment. The walls were still bare from selling my paintings, but now they'd be filled again, with new work. Work that would be credited to me. Yes, I said. I'm available. That night, I got a text from Jordan. Antonio's been calling everyone, trying to explain the messages. Says you took them out of context. Nobody's buying it. Amelia kicked him out. She's staying at Mom's. I typed back. How's Mom handling all this? Not well. Lillian stopped returning her calls. Half her book club saw your video. She's talking about family loyalty and airing dirty laundry. But people are asking questions she can't answer. Good. Maya, are you okay? This is getting really intense. I looked at my laptop, at the foundation paperwork I'd been filling out, at the interview requests piling up in my inbox. I'm better than okay, Jordan. For the first time in my life, I'm visible. The Today Show interview aired on Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, my doorbell was ringing nonstop. I'd stopped answering it after the third news crew showed up wanting a follow-up interview. So when the doorbell rang at 6 p.m., I ignored it like all the others. Then I heard her voice through the door. Maya, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Mom. I looked through the peephole. She was alone, holding a manila envelope, her face puffy from crying. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. What do you want, Mom? Can I come in, please? I drove 3 hours to get here. I stepped aside. She walked into my living room and looked around at the bare walls, the empty spaces where my paintings used to hang. You sold everything. I had to, for your party. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Maya, I never asked you to. You didn't have to ask. I thought if I made it perfect enough, you'd finally see me. She sat down heavily on my couch, clutching the envelope. I do see you. I've always seen you. Really? Then why did you give Amelia credit for my work? I didn't mean to. I was just trying to make her feel included. By excluding me? You're so capable, Maya. So independent. Amelia needs more encouragement. I stared at her. Mom, do you hear what you're saying? You're telling me that because I'm strong, I deserve less love. Because I can handle being ignored, it's okay to ignore me. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant, and you've been doing it my whole life. She opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of papers. I brought these for you. I looked closer. They were printouts of Facebook comments, news articles, interview requests. All about me. I've been reading everything, she said quietly. All the comments on your video, all the articles, all the people saying they relate to your story. And I realized I don't know my own daughter. She handed me a printed comment from someone named Sarah in Michigan. Maya's story is my story. I'm 28 and I've never felt good enough for my mom because my sister is the easy one. Watching Maya speak her truth gave me permission to speak mine. Another one. I'm a mother of 2 daughters, and Maya's video made me examine my own behavior. I've been unconsciously favoring my older daughter because she's more outgoing. I called my younger daughter today to apologize. There are thousands of these, Maya. Thousands of people saying you saved them, helped them, made them feel less alone. I set the papers down. Why are you showing me this? Because I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to you, what we all did. It's too late for that, Mom. Is it? She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I want to make this right. She opened Facebook and started typing. I watched her compose a post, delete it, start over. What are you doing? I'm telling the truth. Finally. She showed me her phone. The post read, I owe my daughter Maya a public apology. She planned and paid for my entire 60th birthday party while I gave her sister all the credit. This is a pattern I've perpetuated for years, overlooking Maya's contributions while praising Amelia's. Maya, I'm sorry. You deserved better from me. You've always deserved better. Don't post that because you feel guilty about the media attention. I'm not posting it because of the media. I'm posting it because it's true. She hit publish. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Supportive messages, people sharing their own stories, family members chiming in with their own apologies. Jordan commented, About time, Aunt Lorraine. Maya deserved this acknowledgement years ago. Uncle Taylor, proud of you for doing the right thing, sis. But then I saw another comment that made my stomach drop. Amelia, Mom, how could you? You're throwing me under the bus for Maya's tantrum. I can't believe my own mother is siding with strangers on the internet over her own daughter. She's not going to forgive you for this, I told Mom. Maybe not. But I can't keep protecting her feelings at the expense of yours. My phone started ringing. Kayla. Maya, are you seeing your mom's Facebook post? It's being shared everywhere. She's here. She drove down to apologize in person. How do you feel? I looked at Mom, sitting on my couch, staring at her phone as more comments poured in. She looked smaller somehow. Older. I don't know yet. After Kayla hung up, Mom and I sat in silence for a while. I brought something else, she said finally. She reached into her purse and pulled out the portrait I'd painted of her, the one I'd given her before the party. I want you to have it back. Why? Because I don't deserve it. Not yet. Maybe someday, if I can prove I've changed, you'll paint me another one. But this one was painted by a daughter who still believed her mother loved her unconditionally. I broke that. She set the painting on my coffee table and stood up. I should go. I know you probably need space to process all this. Mom, wait. She turned back. The foundation I'm starting. The first grant is called The Discarded One. It's for artists whose work has been overlooked or credited to others. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That's perfect. You're going to help so many people. I'm having the launch party next month. Same rooftop where your birthday was. That's fitting. I want you to know you're not invited. She nodded again, not arguing. I understand. But maybe someday, if things change, if you really change. I hope so, Maya. I really hope so. After she left, I sat holding the portrait I'd painted of her. In it, she was smiling that guarded smile, the one she wore in family photos. The one that said everything was perfect when it wasn't. I propped it against the wall where it could catch the evening light. Maybe someday I'd paint her again. But if I did, it would be different. It would be honest. The rooftop looked completely different this time. Instead of cream and gold, everything was painted in bold colors, deep purples, electric blues, vibrant oranges. My paintings hung on easels around the space, each one tagged with a small placard. Maya Marshall, founder, the Discarded One Foundation. 5 minutes until showtime, Kayla said, adjusting the microphone at the podium. You ready for this? I looked out over the city skyline, the same view I'd stared at during Mom's party while watching Amelia take credit for my work. Tonight, 100 people were here to celebrate something I'd built from scratch. I'm ready. The guests started arriving. Art collectors, journalists, other artists who'd applied for grants. Patricia from the Morrison Foundation flew in from New York. Lawrence, the high school friend whose Facebook comment had started everything, brought his photographer to document the event. Maya! A woman with short gray hair approached me. I'm Dr. Susan Martinez. I've been following your story since the beginning. I'm a family therapist, and I've started using your video in sessions with clients who struggle with similar dynamics. Really? Your story gave them language for experiences they couldn't articulate. You've helped more people than you know. As the evening went on, I met person after person who'd been touched by my story. A woman who'd finally confronted her mother about favoritism. A man who'd recognized his own pattern of overlooking his quieter daughter. An artist who'd stopped letting her sister take credit for her work. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone as the crowd gathered, thank you for being here tonight. This rooftop holds special significance for me. It's where I learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most can make you feel the most invisible. I looked out at the faces, strangers who'd become supporters, friends who'd always believed in me, family members who'd finally found their voices. But it's also where I learned that visibility isn't something you wait for someone else to give you. It's something you create for yourself. I gestured to the paintings around us. Every piece you see tonight was created by an artist whose work has been overlooked, undervalued, or credited to someone else. Tonight, we see them. We celebrate them. We fund their dreams. The applause was thunderous. The first Discarded One grant goes to Maria Santos, whose murals have been transforming her community for years, while her male colleagues got the gallery shows. Maria stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for seeing me, she whispered as I handed her the check. Thank you for never stopping your work, even when no one was looking. The evening continued with more grant presentations, more stories of recognition finally given. I was talking to a journalist when I saw a familiar figure at the edge of the crowd. Jordan. He approached cautiously. Maya, I hope it's okay that I came. I know you didn't invite family, but I wanted to support what you're building here. You were the first person to publicly back up my story. You're not just family, you're an ally. How are you doing? Really? I looked around the rooftop, at the celebration of work that would have remained invisible without this platform. I'm good, Jordan. Better than good. And Mom? Amelia? Mom's been going to therapy. She sends me updates sometimes, but we're not ready to rebuild yet. Maybe someday. And Amelia? Amelia started her own blog about being canceled by family. It has 12 followers. Jordan laughed. What about Antonio? Last I heard, he was sliding into some influencer's DMs. Amelia dodged a bullet there. As the evening wound down, I found myself alone on the rooftop for a moment, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi Maya, this is Emma. I'm 16, and I watched your video with my mom. We've been talking about our family dynamics, and she's finally seeing how she's been treating me versus my sister. We're going to therapy together. Thank you for giving me hope that things can change. I screenshot the message and added it to the folder on my phone labeled, Why This Mattered. It had over 3,000 screenshots now. Maya? Kayla appeared beside me. The photographer wants one more shot of you with your paintings. I walked over to where my artwork was displayed. Pieces I'd created over the years, finally hanging in a space where they were seen, appreciated, credited correctly. Can you tell us about this one? The photographer asked, pointing to a canvas covered in overlapping silhouettes. It's called The Invisible Ones, I said. I painted it before all this happened, when I still thought being overlooked was just my normal. And now? I looked around the rooftop, at the empty champagne glasses and the grant recipients still chatting excitedly about their projects, at the business cards scattered on tables and the contact information exchanged, at the foundation I'd built from the ashes of my family's dysfunction. Now I know that being discarded by some people just means you're free to be claimed by the right ones. The photographer smiled. Perfect. That's your quote for the article. As I helped clean up, I found a handwritten note that someone had left on the registration table. Dear Maya, I'm the mom who wrote to you months ago about apologizing to my daughter. We're here tonight together. She's applying for next year's grant. Thank you for saving our relationship. Jennifer and Katie. I looked around the room until I spotted them, a middle-aged woman and a young artist, both wearing paint-stained clothes, both beaming as they looked at the displayed artwork. I walked over to them. Jennifer, I'm Maya. I got your email months ago. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. You changed our family. Katie's been invisible for so long and I didn't even see it. Katie, who looked about 25, smiled shyly. Your video made me realize I wasn't crazy. That I deserved to be seen. You do deserve to be seen. Both of you. As the last guests filtered out, I stood alone on the rooftop one final time. The same space where I'd been erased was now the birthplace of something that would ensure other people never felt invisible again. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Saw the photos from tonight online. I'm proud of you. I know I don't have the right to say that yet, but I am. I typed back, thank you. Then I added, I'm proud of me too. Turns out, the best way to build a family is to start with the ones who were never invited to the table in the first place.
The wine glass hit the marble floor with a satisfying crash, burgundy liquid spreading like blood across my mother's pristine dining room. You are officially out of my will, Addison. Completely. Forever. My name is Addison, and I've been waiting 3 years to hear those exact words. The silence that followed was deafening. My 2 older brothers, Rex and Sterling, exchanged those smug looks they'd perfected since childhood. Rex actually started slow clapping, the sound echoing off the crystal chandelier above our Thanksgiving table. Finally, Sterling muttered, cutting another piece of turkey. Maybe now we can have family dinners without the smell of grease and shame. I kept my hands folded in my lap, staring at the wine stain spreading across the white marble. 3 years of 12-hour shifts at Murphy's Diner. 3 years of law school. 3 years of watching my family treat me like their personal disappointment. Sandra, don't you think that's a bit harsh? My cousin Sloane whispered from across the table. Harsh? My mother's voice pitched higher, the way it always did when she was about to deliver one of her legendary verbal beatdowns. My daughter serves hash browns for a living, Sloane. She's 28 years old and works at a truck stop diner. Do you know what the ladies at the country club say about me? That you raised a hard worker, I suggested quietly. Rex snorted. Hard worker? Addie, you're a waitress. You wear a stained apron and smell like bacon grease. That's not work, that's embarrassment. An embarrassment in an apron, my mother agreed, her voice dripping with disgust. I've given you every opportunity, Addison. Private schools, connections, a trust fund for college. And what did you do? You threw it all away to flip pancakes. I could feel Sloane's eyes on me, willing me to defend myself. But I'd learned long ago that defending yourself to Sandra Davidson was like trying to reason with a hurricane. Better to let it blow over. The will has been updated, my mother continued, pulling out her phone to show Rex and Sterling something on the screen. Jeffrey handled everything last month. You're both getting equal shares of the estate, plus the business holdings and the house in Martha's Vineyard. What about the jewellery collection? Sterling asked, already calculating. Split between you two, though I suppose Rex's wife might appreciate the pearls more. They talked about dividing up my inheritance like I wasn't sitting right there, like I was already dead. And Addison gets nothing, Rex confirmed, grinning at me. Not a penny. Not a penny, my mother repeated. Maybe that'll motivate her to finally do something with her life instead of wasting it in that disgusting diner. I nodded slowly like I was absorbing the blow. I understand. Good. My mother smoothed her silk blouse and picked up her fresh wine glass. Now, maybe we can enjoy our meal without discussing your career choices. The conversation moved on to Rex's latest business venture and Sterling's new condo in Boston. I sat there pushing cranberry sauce around my plate, letting them think they'd won. After dinner, I helped clear the table while my brothers lounged in the living room, already planning how to spend their inheritance. My mother retreated to her study to make phone calls, probably to tell her friends about finally cutting off her disappointing daughter. Sloane cornered me in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. "Are you okay?" she whispered. That was brutal, even for Sandra. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. You look like you're planning something." I smiled at her, the first genuine smile I'd managed all evening. "Want to see something?" I pulled my purse from the counter and unzipped the main compartment. Nestled between my wallet and car keys was a small leather folder. I opened it carefully, revealing the document inside. Sloane's eyes widened as she read the official seal at the top. "Holy shit, Addie! Is that—" "My license to practice law in the state of Massachusetts," I finished quietly. "Passed the bar 3 months ago. But you work at the diner." "Worked. Past tense. I've been at Ferguson and Lucas for 2 weeks now, junior associate." I closed the folder and slipped it back into my purse. Turns out they handle a lot of estate planning. Sloane stared at me like I'd just told her I was secretly a superhero. "You let them humiliate you for 3 years while you were in law school." "I let them think they were humiliating me," I corrected. "There's a difference." From the living room came the sound of my brother's laughter, probably at another joke about my former career in food service. "What are you going to do?" Sloane asked. I zipped up my purse and slung it over my shoulder, already heading for the door. "Nothing," I said, pausing to look back at the dining room where my family was celebrating my disinheritance. "I'm going to do absolutely nothing." But as I walked to my car, I couldn't stop smiling. They had no idea what was coming. The smell of coffee and bacon grease hit me as I pushed through Murphy's diner doors one last time. It was 6 a.m., 3 days after Thanksgiving, and I had some goodbyes to make. "Addie!" Cameron looked up from the grill, his face breaking into that crooked smile that had gotten me through the worst shifts. "Thought you were done with this place." "I am. Just wanted to return this." I held up my uniform and apron, freshly laundered. "And to thank you." "For what?" "For not treating me like I was crazy when you caught me studying contract law during my breaks." Cameron flipped a pancake and shrugged. "My mum went to nursing school while working 3 jobs. I know what determination looks like. That was the thing about Cameron. He saw things other people missed, like the way I'd hidden law textbooks under the register, or how I'd practiced legal arguments while wiping down tables. He never asked questions, just brought me extra coffee during the late shifts when I was cramming for exams. "So, what's the real story?" he asked, sliding the pancake onto a plate. "You've been planning something for months." "I can tell," I glanced around the empty diner. "You remember what I told you about my family? That they're rich assholes who think you're wasting your life here. That's the simplified version." I sat on one of the counter stools, the same spot where I'd eaten countless free meals during my broke student days. "My dad died when I was 14. Heart attack, completely sudden. I'm sorry. He was the only one who ever believed in me. He used to say I had the sharpest mind in the family, that I'd make an incredible lawyer someday." I traced patterns on the counter with my finger. After he died, everything changed. My mom became obsessed with appearances, with what people thought of our family. My brothers learned they could do no wrong. Cameron set a cup of coffee in front of me without being asked. Black, 2 sugars. He'd memorized how I liked it years ago. "What happened to your dad's will?" "That's the million-dollar question, literally." I took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth ground me. He had money, real money, family business, investments, property. But after he died, my mom said there was no will. Everything went to her automatically. You don't believe that. I was 14, not stupid. I remember him talking to lawyers, signing papers. He used to joke about making sure his little lawyer would be taken care of. I laughed bitterly. Guess the joke was on me. The bell above the door chimed and Mrs. Patterson shuffled in for her usual breakfast. Cameron moved to take her order, but I waved him off. "Let me, one last time." "Morning, Mrs. P. The usual." "You know it, honey. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, and gossip if you've got it." I poured her coffee and put the order in. "Actually, I've got some news. This is my last day here. Finally going back to school." Something like that. When Mrs. Patterson was settled with her breakfast, I returned to my conversation with Cameron. "So, what's your plan?" he asked quietly. "Remember that internship I applied for? Ferguson and Lucas? The law firm downtown. I thought they rejected you." "They did, initially." I pulled out my phone and showed him an email from 2 weeks ago. Then they had a change of heart. He read over the message, his eyebrows rising. "They want you to work on estate planning. Specifically, they want me to review some files that their previous associate handled. Apparently, there were some irregularities." "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that happen when a 70-year-old lawyer gets sloppy and doesn't properly verify documentation." I closed my phone. "The kind that might invalidate certain estate transfers if someone knew where to look." Cameron stared at me. "Addie, what exactly are you planning?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a new email. The sender name made my heart skip. Victoria Ferguson, managing partner. I opened it, scanning the contents quickly. Then I read it again, slower this time, making sure I wasn't imagining things. "Holy shit," I whispered. "What?" I turned the phone toward him so he could read the subject line. "Case reassignment, estate of Sandra Davidson." "Your mom's estate?" "My mom's estate." I felt a grin spreading across my face. "They're putting me on my own mother's case." Cameron whistled low. "That's either the best coincidence ever, or someone at that firm knows exactly what they're doing." I stood up, suddenly energized. "I have to go." "Victoria wants to meet with me this morning." "Wait!" Cameron came around the counter, his expression serious. "Are you sure about this, going after your own family?" "They went after me first," I said, slinging my purse over my shoulder. "For 14 years, they've treated me like I don't matter. Like I'm not even part of the family. And now?" I looked back at the diner one last time, at the place where I'd learned that hard work and determination could take you anywhere you wanted to go. Now they're about to find out just how much I matter. The email notification chimed again as I reached the door. Another message from Victoria Ferguson. Urgent, bring everything you know about the Davidson family financial history. We may have found something significant. I walked out into the cold November morning, leaving behind 3 years of grease stains and condescending remarks. It was time to show my family what their disappointment had been doing with her life. Victoria Ferguson's office looked like something out of a legal drama. Floor-to-ceiling law books, mahogany desk, and windows overlooking downtown Boston. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Sit," she said, not looking up from a thick file. "Tell me about Jeffrey Kent. He's been our family lawyer for 20 years. Why?" Victoria finally looked at me, her expression grim. "Because his work on your mother's estate is sloppy at best, fraudulent at worst." She opened the file and spread documents across her desk. Bank statements, property transfers, trust fund allocations. My father's name was on half of them. "Your mother hired us to update her will last month. Standard procedure would be to review all existing documentation first." Victoria pointed to a property deed dated 6 months after my father's death. "This transfer of the Martha's Vineyard house to your mother's sole ownership, it violates the original trust terms." I leaned forward, studying the paperwork. "What original trust terms?" "The ones Jeffrey apparently forgot to mention." She pulled out another document, this one yellowed with age. "Your father established an irrevocable trust in 2008. The house, along with 60% of his liquid assets, was supposed to be held in trust for his children until they reached 30. My hands shook as I read the trust document. There it was, in black and white. Provisions for Rex, Sterling, and me. Equal shares. But I never received anything. Because your mother and Jeffrey transferred everything out of the trust illegally. They needed all 3 children to sign off on any changes. You were a minor, so your signature wasn't required then, but..." Victoria flipped to another page. "The trust specifically states that any attempt to disinherit a beneficiary without cause automatically triggers a full audit and potential reversal of all transfers." What constitutes cause? Felony conviction, proven financial irresponsibility, or formal legal declaration of incompetence? Victoria's smile was sharp. "Working at a diner doesn't qualify." My phone buzzed. Text from Sloan. "Can you meet for lunch? Found something you need to see." "I have to go," I said, gathering my things. "But Victoria, what does this mean for my mother's new will?" "It means every transfer she's made since your father's death could be invalid. The house, the investments, even the money she's been giving your brothers." Victoria stood, extending her hand. "It means we might be able to put everything back the way your father intended." I met Sloan at a small cafe near her office. She worked in financial planning, which meant she understood money trails better than most people understood their own bank accounts. "I've been digging into your family's finances," she said without preamble, sliding a folder across the table. "Rex's business ventures, they're all funded by transfers from your mother's accounts. Transfers that originated from your father's trust." I opened the folder. Bank statements, wire transfers, loan documents, hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing from trust accounts to Rex's failed restaurant, Sterling's condo down payment, even my mother's country club membership fees. "They've been living off my father's money for 14 years. Your father's money that was supposed to be partially yours." Sloan pointed to a highlighted section. "Look at this. Sterling's been getting a monthly allowance of $3,000 since he was 22. Rex got a lump sum of $200,000 for his restaurant. while I worked double shifts to pay for law school. Gets better, your mother took out a loan against the Martha's Vineyard house last year. Guess what she used as collateral? I scanned the document she handed me. The trust assets that she doesn't legally own. Bingo! If the trust gets reinstated, that loan becomes her personal debt, not secured by the property. My phone rang. Victoria Ferguson. Addison, where are you? Having lunch. Why? I need you back here immediately. Geoffrey Kent just called. He wants to meet about your mother's estate. What did you tell him? That I'd send our associate handling the case. He doesn't know it's you yet. Victoria's voice was tight with excitement. This could be our chance to see how deep this goes. I looked at Sloane, who was still sorting through financial documents. Can you come with me? I might need a witness. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this. Back at the law firm, Victoria briefed us quickly. Geoffrey's bringing updated documentation. He claims there were some oversights in the original estate handling that need to be corrected. He knows we're on to him, I said. Probably. But he doesn't know how much we know. Victoria handed me a legal pad. Take notes on everything he says. If he tries to backdate anything or claims documents were lost, we'll have him. The conference room door opened and Geoffrey Kent walked in. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. His eyes widened when he saw me. Addison, what are you doing here? I work here, I said simply. I'm the associate handling my mother's estate. Geoffrey's face went pale. He set his briefcase down with shaking hands. I see. Well, this is unexpected. Isn't it? Victoria's smile could have cut glass. Now, you mentioned some oversights that need correcting? Geoffrey opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. Yes, well, it seems there were some trust documents that weren't properly dissolved when your father passed. Technical issues, really. Nothing that affects the current will. I picked up the papers he'd brought. They were freshly printed, still warm from the copier. These are dated 2 weeks ago, I said. Clerical error. The originals were damaged. Sloane leaned forward. Damaged how? Water damage. Pipe burst in my office. I looked at Victoria, who nodded slightly. Geoffrey, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I think we need to discuss what really happened to my father's original estate plan. The old lawyer's hands trembled as he reached for his water glass. I think, he said quietly, we need to talk about a lot of things. Geoffrey's confession took 3 hours and filled 17 pages of legal notes. Your mother was desperate, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. After your father died, she discovered the trust terms. She couldn't touch the majority of his assets without all 3 children's consent. So you helped her steal from her own kids? Sloane's voice was ice cold. I helped her navigate the legal complexities. Geoffrey loosened his tie. She was grieving, overwhelmed. She convinced me that your father never intended for a 14-year-old to have control over family finances. Victoria leaned back in her chair. What about the original will, the one that disappeared? Geoffrey's hands shook as he reached into his briefcase again. It didn't disappear. He pulled out a manila envelope, sealed and yellowed with age. My father's handwriting was on the front. For Addison, open only if necessary. My breath caught. He left me a letter. More than a letter. Geoffrey slid the envelope across the table. He suspected your mother might try to override his wishes. This was his insurance policy. I stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it. 14 years of wondering what my father really wanted, and the answer was sitting right in front of me. Open it, Victoria said gently. The seal broke easily, as if it had been waiting all this time. Inside was a letter in my father's familiar handwriting, along with several legal documents. My dearest Addison, I read aloud, my voice shaking. If you're reading this, it means your mother has tried to cut you out of your inheritance. I pray I'm wrong, but I know Sandra better than anyone. She values appearances over everything, including her children's well-being. Sloane reached over and squeezed my hand. I continued reading. I've established a fail-safe mechanism. If anyone attempts to disinherit you unjustly, or if the trust is dissolved without your consent, everything reverts to the original terms I established. Jeffrey has the documentation, though I suspect if you're reading this, he may have been compromised. Jesus, Jeffrey muttered. He knew. There's more. I flipped to the second page. I've also established a codicil that activates if you pursue legal education. I always believed you'd make an extraordinary lawyer, sweetheart. If you pass the bar, you become the sole executor of my estate, with full authority to restore the original distribution. Victoria sat up straight. You're a licensed attorney, as of 3 months ago. Then, according to this document, you have full legal authority over your father's estate, not your mother, you. Jeffrey buried his face in his hands. Sandra's going to kill me. She's going to try, I said, still reading. But according to this, every transfer she's made since Dad died was illegal. The house, the trust funds, everything Rex and Sterling received, it all has to be returned. What about the new will she just signed? Sloane asked. Victoria was already pulling up files on her laptop. If Addison has executor authority, Sandra's new will is meaningless. She can't give away assets she doesn't legally own. My phone buzzed. Text from my mother. Family meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Jeffrey says there are issues with the estate that need immediate attention. I showed the message to Victoria. She knows something's wrong. Good. Let her sweat. Victoria closed her laptop. Jeffrey, you're going to that meeting. You're going to tell Sandra exactly what we discussed here. I can't. She'll what? Fire you? Sue you for malpractice? Victoria's smile was predatory. You should have thought about that before you helped her commit fraud. Jeffrey gathered his papers with trembling hands. What do you want me to tell her? The truth, I said, folding my father's letter carefully. Tell her that her daughter isn't as stupid as she thought. After Jeffrey left, Victoria, Sloane and I spent another 2 hours going through the legal implications. The trust could be fully reinstated. Every illegal transfer could be reversed. My mother would keep the house, but everything else would be redistributed according to my father's original wishes. What about Rex and Sterling? Sloane asked. They've been living off this money for years. They'll have to pay it back, Victoria said, with interest. Rex's restaurant failed 2 years ago. He doesn't have $200,000. Then he'll have to figure it out. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. They made their choices. They chose to take money that wasn't theirs while I worked myself to death paying for school. My phone rang. Cameron. Hey, how did the meeting go? Better than I expected. Much better. Want to grab dinner and tell me about it? I looked at Victoria and Sloane, who were still deep in legal documents. Actually, yes. I need to process all this. Pick you up in an hour. Perfect. I hung up and turned to Victoria. What happens now? Now we prepare for war, she said simply. Your mother isn't going to give up 14 years of financial control without a fight. Let her fight, I said, tucking my father's letter into my purse. She's been underestimating me my whole life. Time to show her what a mistake that was. Sloane grinned. This is going to be epic. No, I corrected, heading for the door. This is going to be justice. As I walked to the elevator, I could hear Victoria on the phone, already calling in favours and preparing legal briefs. Tomorrow's family meeting was going to be very different from what my mother expected. For the first time in 14 years, I was walking into that house with the upper hand, and I intended to use it. The Ferguson and Lucas conference room felt like a courtroom. My mother sat at the head of the polished table in her signature pearls, flanked by Rex and Sterling. They looked like they were attending a board meeting, not a family discussion. Jeffrey sat across from them, sweating despite the air conditioning. Victoria had positioned herself near the door, officially there as firm representation, but really there to watch the show. I walked in 5 minutes late, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing my best suit, the one I'd bought for my bar exam. "Sorry I'm late," I said, taking the seat directly across from my mother. "Traffic was terrible," Rex snorted. "Since when do you own a suit?" "Since I became a lawyer," I said simply. The silence that followed was deafening. Sterling recovered first. "Very funny, Addie. Can we get on with this? I have a meeting at 4. "Actually, she's not joking." Jeffrey's voice cracked. "Addison passed the Massachusetts bar 3 months ago. She's been working here as an associate." My mother's face went through several colour changes. "That's impossible." "Is it?" I opened my portfolio and pulled out my bar certification. "Want to see my license?" Rex leaned forward, squinting at the document. "This is fake." "Call the State Bar Association," Victoria said from her corner. "License number is right there." "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother demanded. "When would I have told you? Between the lectures about my life choices or the jokes about my intelligence?" I set the certificate aside. "Besides, I wanted to surprise you." "Well, congratulations," Sterling said sarcastically. "Now, can we discuss why Jeffrey called this meeting?" Jeffrey cleared his throat. "There are some complications with the estate planning." "What kind of complications?" My mother's voice was sharp. "The kind that happen when you illegally dissolve a trust," I said. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "I don't know what you're talking about," my mother said. "Really?" I pulled out another document, because I have the original trust documentation right here, the one Dad established in 2008, the one you and Jeffrey pretended didn't exist. Rex grabbed the papers from my hands. "This is bullshit. Dad left everything to Mom. Dad left 60% of his assets in an irrevocable trust for his children, equal shares." I looked directly at my mother. "You've been stealing from your own kids for 14 years. I have not been stealing. 200,000 to Rex for his restaurant, 3,000 a month to Sterling since he was 22. Country club fees, vacation homes, jewellery." I pulled out Sloane's financial analysis. "All funded by trust assets that legally belong to me, Rex, and Sterling." Sterling's face had gone pale. The monthly payments were from Mom's account. Mom's account that was funded by Dad's trust. Money she had no legal right to touch. "This is ridiculous," my mother snapped. "Jeffrey, tell them this is nonsense." Jeffrey wouldn't meet her eyes. "I can't do that, Sandra." "Why not?" "Because it's all true." His voice was barely a whisper. "Your husband suspected you might try something like this. He built in safeguards." I pulled out my father's letter. He left me this. "Instructions on what to do if you tried to cut me out of my inheritance." My mother lunged for the letter, but I pulled it back. "Don't touch it," Victoria said sharply. "That's evidence now." "Evidence of what?" Rex demanded. "Fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty." Victoria stepped forward. "Your mother and Jeffrey have been systematically looting your father's estate for over a decade." "That's insane," Sterling said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" "How do you think you afforded that condo in Boston on a bartender's salary?" I looked at Rex. "Or how Rex got 200,000 in startup capital when no bank would loan him money?" "Mum gave us that money," Rex said. "Mum gave you stolen money, money that belonged to all 3 of us." My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I will not sit here and be accused of stealing from my own children." "Then where are you going?" I asked. Because according to the trust documents, I'm now the executor of Dad's estate. Every transfer you made has to be reversed. You can't do that. Actually, I can. I pulled out the final document. Dad's codicil specifically states that if any beneficiary becomes a licensed attorney, they assume full executor authority. Congratulations, Mom. You just lost control of your own inheritance. The room erupted. Rex started shouting about lawyers and lawsuits. Sterling demanded to see the documents. My mother stood frozen, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "This isn't over," she finally said. "You're right," I agreed. "It's not. Because now we have to discuss the new will you signed last month. The one where you tried to disinherit me completely." Jeffrey made a choking sound. "Sandra, you didn't." "I did exactly what any mother would do with a disappointing child." I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. "Well, that's going to be a problem." "Why?" "Because you can't give away assets you don't own. And as of right now, you don't own anything except the house and whatever's left in your personal checking account." Victoria stepped forward with a thick folder. "We'll need a complete accounting of all transfers made from the trust accounts. Bank statements, receipts, everything." "And if we refuse?" Sterling asked. "Then we'll get a court order," I said. "And trust me, judges don't like it when people steal from orphaned children." My mother's wine glass, when had she gotten wine, slipped from her fingers and shattered on the conference room floor. The sound echoed in the sudden silence, burgundy liquid spreading across the expensive carpet like spilled blood. Just like Thanksgiving dinner 3 days ago. But this time, I was the one holding all the cards. 2 weeks later, we were back in the same conference room for the official reading of the revised will. This time I sat at the head of the table. My mother arrived exactly on time, wearing a black dress like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. Rex and Sterling flanked her, both looking like they hadn't slept in days. Sloane sat beside me, officially there as a financial consultant. Cameron had insisted on coming too, claiming he wanted to see how this ended. Victoria stood near the window, arms crossed, ready for whatever came next. "Before we begin," I said, opening the legal folder in front of me, "does anyone have questions about the process?" "Yeah," Rex said. "I have a question. How is this legal? You can't just take over Mom's will because you went to law school." "I'm not taking over her will. I'm executing Dad's estate according to his original wishes." I pulled out the trust documents. "The will Mom signed last month attempted to distribute assets she doesn't legally own. It's void." "That's impossible," Sterling said. "She's owned those assets for 14 years. She's had possession of them. That's different from ownership." Victoria stepped forward. "The trust was never properly dissolved. Every transfer made from those accounts was illegal." Jeffrey walked in, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. He set his briefcase down and avoided eye contact with everyone. "Jeffrey," my mother said sharply, "please tell them this is all a misunderstanding." "I can't do that, Sandra." He pulled out a thick folder. "The State Bar Association has already opened an investigation into my handling of the estate. My only option is full cooperation." "You bastard," Rex snarled. "You helped her do this, and now you're throwing Mom under the bus?" "I helped your mother commit fraud," Jeffrey said quietly, "and now I'm trying to minimize the damage." I stood up, the revised will in my hands. "Let's get started." "Wait," my mother said. "I want to say something first." "Go ahead." She looked directly at me, her eyes cold. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you've won some great victory. But you've destroyed this family. Your father would be ashamed of you." "My father would be ashamed of you," I replied calmly. "He trusted you to take care of his children. Instead, you stole from one to spoil the other two. I gave Rex and Sterling opportunities. You gave them stolen money. I opened the will. Now, let me read what Dad actually wanted. The room fell silent. The estate of James Davidson, revised and executed according to the original trust terms established in 2008. I looked up at my family. First, the Martha's Vineyard house remains with Sandra Davidson for her lifetime, provided she maintains the property and pays all associated taxes. My mother's shoulders relaxed slightly. However, I continued, all other assets are to be distributed as follows. The primary residence in Newton will be sold, with proceeds divided equally among the 3 children. What? My mother gasped. That's my house. That's Dad's house. He bought it before you were married. I kept reading. The investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $1.2 million, will be divided equally among Rex, Sterling, and Addison. Sterling leaned forward. So, we each get $400,000. Not exactly. I flipped to the next page. All previous distributions from the trust must be repaid before any new distributions are made. Rex's face went white. Repaid? You received $200,000 for your restaurant. Sterling received approximately $150,000 in monthly payments over 6 years. That money has to be returned to the estate before anyone gets their share. I don't have $200,000, Rex said. Then you'll receive $200,000 less than your siblings. I looked at Sterling. Same for you. That's not fair, Sterling protested. We didn't know it was stolen money. Didn't you? Sloane spoke up for the first time. You never wondered how your mother could afford to give you $3,000 a month while your sister worked double shifts to pay for school? You thought you deserved it more than she did, Cameron said quietly, because she was just the disappointment in the apron. I continued reading. The vintage jewellery collection currently in Sandra Davidson's possession will be transferred to Sloane Mitchell, as she was the only family member who maintained a relationship with all parties without financial motivation. Sloane's eyes widened. Addison, I can't... Dad's instructions, not mine. I smiled at her. He always liked you. What about the business holdings? My mother asked. Liquidated. The proceeds will establish the James Davidson Educational Foundation, providing scholarships for first-generation college students pursuing legal careers. You're giving away our money to strangers, Rex stood up, his chair falling backward. I'm giving away Dad's money according to his wishes. He believed in education, in helping people who didn't have advantages. I closed the will. Unlike some people in this room. My mother was staring at me like I was a stranger. You planned this. All of it. The diner job, law school, working at this firm. You planned to destroy us. I planned to survive you, I corrected. There's a difference. This is insane, Sterling said. We'll contest it. We'll sue. With what money? Victoria asked. Your trust fund accounts have been frozen pending the investigation, and good luck finding a lawyer willing to take a case against their own client's estate. Geoffrey cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Everyone turned to look at him. The house in Newton. It's already been sold. What? My mother shrieked. Addison had the authority as executor. The sale closed yesterday. He pulled out a cheque and slid it across the table to me. Proceeds were $850,000. I looked at the cheque, then at my family's horrified faces. Don't worry, I said, folding the cheque carefully. You'll each get your share. After you pay back what you stole. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of my mother's quiet sobbing. Justice, it turned out, was a beautiful thing. You manipulated this whole thing. My mother screamed, her composure finally cracking completely. This isn't what I signed. Actually, it is exactly what you signed. I pulled out a manila folder from my briefcase. Would you like to see the documents? Rex lunged forward, grabbing for the folder. Show me what she signed. Show me right now. I calmly handed him the papers. Page 3, your mother's signature, witnessed and notarized. Sterling read over Rex's shoulder, his face growing paler by the second. This says she agreed to reinstate the original trust terms. That's impossible, my mother said. I never signed anything like that. October 15th, I said. You came to this office to sign what Jeffrey told you were updated inventory documents for your jewellery collection. The room went dead silent. You remember that day, don't you, Mum? You were so concerned about making sure the insurance values were accurate for your precious pearls. My mother's hand flew to her throat, touching the pearl necklace she never took off. Jeffrey told you there were some technical legal terms mixed in with the jewellery appraisal, but that you should just sign where he indicated. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward her. We have it all on video. The security footage from the conference room played on the screen. There was my mother 2 weeks ago, sitting in the same chair she occupied now. Jeffrey was explaining something about jewellery valuations while sliding papers in front of her. I was supervising the meeting, Victoria said. Standard procedure for all estate modifications. Your mother was informed that she was signing legal documents. She chose not to read them thoroughly. You tricked me, my mother whispered. I gave you the same consideration you gave me for 28 years, I replied. I let you assume I was too stupid to matter. Rex was still reading the documents, his hands shaking. This can't be legal. She was coerced. By whom? Victoria asked. Jeffrey explained that she was signing legal documents. She had every opportunity to read them or request her own counsel. But the jewellery inventory was also real, I said. Page 12. Every piece is listed and appraised. You got exactly what you came for, Mom. You just got some additional legal clarity as a bonus. Cameron spoke up from his corner. Sounds like she signed in sound mind with full disclosure. That's what makes it binding, right? Exactly right, Victoria confirmed. My mother turned to Jeffrey, desperation in her voice. You have to fix this. Tell them I didn't understand what I was signing. Jeffrey shook his head slowly. Sandra, I explained 3 times that you were signing legal documents related to your estate. You said, and I quote, I don't care about the legal mumbo-jumbo. Just show me where to sign so I can get back to my lunch plans. That's not, I didn't, it's all on the recording, I said gently. Would you like me to play that part? Sterling slammed his hand on the table. This is fraud. You can't trick someone into signing away their inheritance. She didn't sign away her inheritance, Victoria corrected. She signed a document acknowledging that the assets she thought she owned were actually held in trust for her children. She simply agreed to honour her late husband's wishes. I'm calling my lawyer, Rex said, pulling out his phone. With what money? Sloane asked. Your accounts are frozen, remember? I'll find someone who works on contingency. Good luck with that, Victoria said. Most attorneys won't take a case against an estate they know is legally sound. Bad for business. My mother was staring at the video footage, watching herself sign the documents that had just redistributed her life. James always said you were the smart one, she said quietly. He also said I was the kind one, the one who would take care of everyone. I closed my laptop. But you made sure I learned that kindness is a luxury I couldn't afford. So what happens now? Sterling asked. Now you figure out how to pay back the money you took from the trust. Rex, you owe 200,000. Sterling, you owe 150,000. And if we can't pay it back, then you don't get your inheritance until you do. I stood up, gathering my papers. The trust will hold your portions until the debt is satisfied. That could take years, Rex said. Then you better get started. I slung my purse over my shoulder. I hear Murphy's Diner is hiring. The work is honest and they pay weekly. My mother looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. How can you be so cruel? I learned from the best, I said simply. Geoffrey cleared his throat one last time. There's something else you should know, Sandra. Everyone turned to look at him. Your husband knew this might happen. He left me specific instructions. Geoffrey pulled out one final envelope. If you ever tried to disinherit Addison unjustly, I was supposed to give her this. He handed me the envelope, my father's handwriting on the front. For my brilliant daughter, who never needed my protection but deserved it anyway. I tucked the envelope into my purse without opening it. Some things were meant to be read in private. This meeting is over, I announced. Geoffrey will handle the paperwork for the account transfers. Victoria will oversee the foundation establishment. Any questions should be directed through proper legal channels. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mom, you might want to start looking for a smaller place. The property taxes on the Martha's Vineyard house are due next month, and you'll be paying them out of your own pocket now. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. In the hallway, Cameron caught up with me. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it for a moment. Like I can finally breathe. The coffee-stained apron hangs in a frame on my office wall now, right next to my law degree and bar certification. Clients always ask about it, and I tell them it reminds me that honest work comes in many forms. Miss Thompson, my assistant knocked on the door. Your 3 o'clock is here. I looked up from the scholarship applications I was reviewing. The James Davidson Educational Foundation had received over 200 applications in its first month. Send them in. A young woman walked in, maybe 22, wearing a uniform from the same chain restaurant where I'd worked through college. She clutched a folder of papers like her life depended on it. I'm Maria, she said nervously. I applied for the scholarship. Sit down, Maria. Tell me about yourself. I'm a single mom, 2 kids. I work nights at the restaurant and take classes during the day. She opened her folder with shaking hands. I want to be a lawyer, but I can't afford to quit my job to go to law school full-time. What kind of law interests you? Family law. I want to help people like me. People who get taken advantage of because they don't know their rights. I smiled, remembering a similar conversation I'd had with Cameron years ago. The scholarship covers full tuition plus living expenses. You wouldn't need to work. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Are you serious? Dead serious. Your application essay was exceptional. I handed her the acceptance letter I'd prepared that morning. Congratulations. She burst into tears, clutching the letter to her chest. After she left, I called Cameron. Guess what I just did? Changed another life? Gave someone the chance I never had? I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the Boston skyline. The foundation approved 12 scholarships this quarter. Your dad would be proud. I think he is. I'd finally opened his last letter the night after the will reading. It was short, just 2 sentences. I always knew you'd be the one to set things right. Take care of yourself first, sweetheart. The rest will follow. My phone buzzed with a text from Sloane. Rex filed for bankruptcy. Sterling moved back in with Sandra. Thought you should know. I wasn't surprised. Rex's debts had caught up with him when the trust payments stopped. Sterling had been living beyond his means for years, sustained only by his monthly allowance. Any word from your mum? Cameron asked. Radio silence, which is fine with me. That wasn't entirely true. Part of me had hoped she might reach out, maybe apologise or at least acknowledge what she'd done. But Sandra Davidson had never apologised for anything in her life. I wasn't about to expect her to start now. Want to grab dinner? Cameron asked. I'm making that pasta thing you like. Can't tonight. I'm volunteering at Murphy's. You're what? I laughed at his surprise. I go in twice a week to mentor students who are working their way through school. Help them with applications, study techniques, that sort of thing. Of course you do. Murphy's diner looked exactly the same. Same cracked vinyl booths, same smell of coffee and bacon grease, same exhausted workers pulling double shifts to make ends meet. Addison, Jenny, the night manager, waved me over. Your student is in booth 3. A kid named Marcus was hunched over textbooks, highlighter in one hand, coffee cup in the other. Pre-law, working his way through community college before transferring to a 4-year school. How's the constitutional law reading going? I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. My brain hurts, he admitted. This stuff is so complicated. It's supposed to be. That's what makes it powerful. I pulled out my own copy of the textbook, the same one I'd studied from years ago. Let's break it down. We spent 2 hours going through case law and legal precedents. Marcus was sharp, asking the right questions, making connections I hadn't expected. You're going to make a great lawyer, I told him as I packed up my things. You really think so? I know so. You remind me of someone I used to know. Who? A girl who thought she wasn't smart enough for law school. Turns out she was wrong. As I walked to my car, I passed the window where I used to serve coffee to truckers and late-night regulars. A young woman was working that station now, probably around the same age I'd been when I started. She looked tired but determined, the same expression I'd worn for 3 years. My phone rang as I got in the car. Unknown number. Hello? Addison, it's Jeffrey. I hadn't heard from him since the Bar Association hearing. He'd received a formal reprimand, but kept his license. What do you want, Jeffrey? I wanted you to know. Your mother sold the Martha's Vineyard house. I wasn't surprised. The property taxes alone were more than she could afford on her reduced income. Where is she now? Small apartment in Brookline. She's not doing well, Addison. That's not my problem anymore. I know. I just thought you should know. After he hung up, I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, watching the diner through the window. The girl at my old station was helping a customer, smiling despite her obvious exhaustion. I started the car and drove home to Cameron, to the life I'd built from nothing, to the future I'd fought for and won. The apron in my office frame wasn't a symbol of shame anymore. It was a reminder that I'd survived everything they'd thrown at me and come out stronger. And that was enough.